I could, yeah. There we go. I now call this meeting, regular meeting of the Davenport Community School District Board of Directors to order. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Director Klein Jerome, would you please share your mic and read the board priorities?
The Davenport School Board establishes the following priorities to ensure the academic success of all students: provide leadership and direction to improve the overall learning environment in our classroom, schools, and district, including the health, safety, security, and happiness of students and staff; direct and support actions, programs, and activities which reduce the impacts of poverty on our students, their families, and our community.
Thank you, Director Klein Jerome. Director Potts, would you please read the mission and vision statements?
Mission statement: enhance each student's abilities by providing a quality education enriched by our diverse community. Our vision statement: education that challenges conventional thinking, prepares all students to compete in a global society, and inspires our students, parents, staff, and community to answer the question, what if?
Thank you, Director Potts. Superintendent Schneckloff, would you please read the goals?
Board that the district finance issues are resolved and staff will continue to keep the district in compliance with all state and reporting mandates. And number 4, demonstrate progress in disproportionality.
Thank you, Superintendent Schneckloff. We will move on to public hearings. We will do 2.01 public hearing for the Davenport Learning Center roof repair project. I will now conduct a public hearing on the Davenport Learning Center roof repair project. Notice of the hearing was published in the Quad City Times on April 15, 2022. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please step forward to the microphone or call 563-445-5001 and enter the conference ID 9061461. State your name and address for the record. Seeing and hearing none, I now declare the public hearing closed. I will now conduct a public hearing on the North High Gym roof replacement. Notice of the hearing was published in the Quad City Times on April 15, 2022. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please step forward to the microphone or call 563-445-5001 and enter the conference ID 9061461. State your name and address for the record. Seeing and hearing none, I now declare the public hearing closed. We will now move on to presentations. The first presentation, 3.01, a system within a system, and haircuts at Madison.
So anytime we can highlight a partner that is, to quote our board president, about action, we want to do that. So Mr. Sherwin Robinson is a definite partner for the Davenport Community School District, and ASWA stands for a system within a system. And what that means to me, I know that you have a very specific definition, but that means I'm going to get people and I'm going to do work inside of the Davenport School District that's meaningful, that means something to kids, and it helps better the community that you live in. And so we wanted to hear about the wonderful things that you are doing in your organization, and I know you brought your team with you today. And as you move forward through your presentation, just say next slide, and Mrs. T will make sure to be able to advance the slide for you. But if you wouldn't mind stepping up to the podium, and anybody that does that, do so as well. So Sherwin, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing what your system is and the projects that you have going. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, TJ, for inviting me. And it's a pleasure for me to be here. And as was came about right before the pandemic. And the reason why, I'll get into a little more a little later, but the reason why is because I never knew growing up about the disparities of financial illiteracy. I say illiteracy because that's what I was taught. Poor health, along with all the other 6 components. And we are comprised of health and wellness, real estate, economics, education, financial literacy, and judicial. And the reason why I chose all 3 of those is because that's what we're most affected by. And I will introduce the team a little later. So if we can go to the next slide. And if we go to Books and Barbers, that will kind of give a little idea of what I'm doing in the Davenport Community Schools. And I am partnership with the African American Leadership Society through the United Way. And we have about a 1-minute video. Go to the Books and Barbers, yes. Well, maybe not. Well, I'll just explain. There's a short video, as you see a picture there. And what we do once a month is we go over and cut hair for free. We have the Moline Barber College that comes over. Also, and I think Fred Hall, he's been in with us as well. And as I said, we do that through the United Way, and it's a pleasure to go over and to talk to the young boys and some young ladies to see who they are, what their lives are about, and what their education is pertaining to as it relates to how they go forward in the future. And then the African American Leadership Summit, under that notation, it was a ad that I did with the Quad City Times. And that was a little story about how As Was got started. Now, I have 4 sons. They all went to the Davenport Community School District. And I think my sons like to be in competition with me, so they're having more kids than I did. And one being Sherwin here. And all of our kids, their kids are still in the Davenport Community School District. And As Was came about a few years ago, early 2000s. I was on drugs, became homeless. And my fathers and their brother were good men, but they were all alcoholics, and that's how they died. So I thought about my kids. This is not the way I want to die, and I want to leave a legacy. So I have a barber shop, and being homeless, I was just going through the routine. So I thought about my kids, and I thought about if I pass away, they don't have anything, and I will leave them alone with a loan. So I prayed. God blessed me. I not only was able to get a home, I was able to buy my childhood home, which is a duplex, and now I'm a landlord, and have a little property. So that's a start. And I was in this barbershop the other day, and my other son, Sherrod, was talking to me about how he's talking to his sons about financial literacy, investment, stockbroking, and how he's putting it in their heads right now. And that made me feel really good because it's still something I don't know about. But my kids are doing things to change the generation. And this is an intergenerational group. We have a panel from our young man, Deshaun, which is a product of Davenport Community Schools, and up to Mr. Andrews, who isn't here tonight. And we're grateful to have him because he's one of our advisors in the committee. So I realized that those things that I feel short from, I needed that to impact my life going forward. There's still some things I need help on. This pandemic even set me back even further, but I'm determined. I'm determined to not just show my kids, but to kids, like I said, in Davenport Community Schools, in the judicial system, to learn about these things so that, you don't have to go through the things that we did. We can't solve the world's problems, but we can put a dent in it. And so before I introduce you guys, I want to talk about the United Way AALS. That's a committee to where, as we started out talking about doing some things in Davenport Community Schools, do things in the community, and we're looking for more men to volunteer, as the school is as well. So we're doing a lot of great things, and I'm just thankful and grateful that we have people who are out here trying to do the things to make Quad Cities a better place. So now I will talk about the summit that we did. We did last year over at St. Ambrose, and we had 3 national speakers come in, and they talked about, at that time, education, finance, and health and wellness. And they did an awesome job. They not only talked about those things, but they talked about the disparities, whether it be systemic, generational, or personal, and how we can get those resources to change that mindset and start living a better lifestyle. So I didn't want to just do things for that one day. So we decided to get with the Davenport Community Schools. I talked with TJ. I got with Mr. Flynn, Principal Flynn, down at Central. And when we do all the 6 components, we don't just have people on here teaching these things. We have professionals in the Quad Cities areas I am so overwhelmed about, because they could ask for money, and they deserve it. But they're doing this on their free time. They have businesses. They work at the health department and the YMCA, Davenport Community Schools. And I'm just delightful, because when I asked them, they didn't say no, not one bit. So I would just like to introduce Deshaun Shouts, if you'll stand, just let them see who you are. Stuart Scott, which is at the Davenport Health Department. Rashida Jameson, and she has her own business. What is it? And she's in finances. So, and we also have Allison Kananashu, and she's with the Davenport Community Schools. And I'm just grateful, because we're just not just putting people on a committee or having somebody do something. We're having people to get up and do the things that they're professionals at. So the kids won't just be getting something and going around and just getting something secondhand. They're getting it from professionals. I'm so excited. So, but they're doing a wonderful job. So we did a follow-up at Central, and Joseph Overton, I think he's not here. He did the piece on economics. Rashida Jameson and Tamika Tony, they did the piece on finance. And Stuart did health and wellness, and they did an awesome job. So much to where Mr. Flynn wants us to come back, if we can, to work it out once a quarter. And I think we're supposed to go back again before the school year's out. So I'm just excited. And like I said, the committee is intergenerational. And once we started talking about getting our agenda together, there were people on the committee, white, black, female, males, said we didn't get this when we were young, because this is an African-American male summit. So we decided to open it up to both genders, all colors, all cultures. And as we move forward, as you see, we also have Allison that's not here, and she works with the community health department. So with that being said, we're trying to move forward, and we want to make an impact here in the Davenport Community Schools. And I just think that we're just doing a wonderful job. And I'm pleased to have my son with me. I have 2 sons involved in this. And it's just grateful. So the turnaround in my life, in my generation, is just remarkable. So I know I have more, but the slide is not working. And oh yes, here we go. So here's where I come in and asking the Davenport Community Schools to come in at, is because we're asking for partnerships this year, and that consists of a subcommittee from the Davenport Community School District to be a part of our committee and making decisions from your aspect based on the mission from As Was. And that will consist of being a partner, $5,000, and said you get all the other benefits as well. The 15-second video, you get follow-up open ceremonies, you get a table, and various other things. So as we pitch this, I'm grateful to just come do this presentation and go on further. One of the here we'll see we'll be going down to the mayors, doing the same thing with the same thing, and that's the group up there in my top right-hand corner. And in the middle there, you have St. Ambrose, which they're giving us their facility free this year. And as long as they have students from the school that can work on the committee and do the marketing. And I think they're working out the food situation right now. We're grateful to have them on. And down in the bottom right-hand corner, you have Rodney Jackson, who is not here. He's the vice president of As Was. And he's also in the resource department over at XPAT. So I'm just excited about what everybody's doing. And our further thing going down the road, we're trying to get with industries, institutions, or organizations and corporations to get involved with our kids so that they can probably either do some hiring, some job shadowing, so forth. Tomorrow I have Mr. Andrews got me in touch with the guy from over at the Milan John Deere distribution warehouse, and I will bring that forth information. And what he's going to do is use ASWELS as a pitch to hire high school students. So I'll have more information on that tomorrow. So John Deere is our first link to this ASWELS. So that's all I have. I'm open for questions. Oh, does anybody have anything? Yes, sir.
Thank you. My name is Stuart Scott. I'm a community health interventionist for the Scott County Health Department. Half of my time is doing testing, HIV, hepatitis testing. The other half is doing outreach in the community, facilitating conversations about health and wellness, so on and so forth. I just wanted to take this moment, especially in the public, to acknowledge Mr. Robinson for not only bringing us here, but for standing on the forefront and pulling resources from the community to give back to our community. So I'm grateful to be a part of this organization. And I encourage anyone in the community who wants to give back to partner with Mr. Robinson and support this mission of our vision of intergenerational wellness, and our motto is moving forward as we reach back. So thank you, sir, and thank you all as well.
We're live. We're live. Does anyone have any questions on the presentation?
I was just going to say thank you for coming. Sounds like a fantastic organization. And also, I wanted to thank you for your participation in the local school improvement advisory committee, which is a vital part of Davenport's community and future building. So not only are you working, from the outside, you're also working with us as one of our valued community members. So thank you very much. And I'm sure you can provide some other people to come with you next time.
Yes. Thank you. I'm proud to be on that committee as well. Thank you.
If people, I don't think this one works either, does it? Yes? Hello? Okay. How do people get a hold of you? What is a good way to contact you if people have
I do have
partnerships?
Email, as well as they have a email as well, and then we also have a link for what is the link for the event itself? So I'll get that information to you. So
Okay.
I can put it on here.
Great, thank you.
If there's no more comments,
This one works for me every time. I appreciate you coming and all your hard work and dedication to the community. I was kind of wanting to know a little more about like the haircuts at Madison, how that works. I heard you make the kids, not make the kids, got to read books to you to get a haircut and things like that.
Yeah, that's part of it. They read books, but as far as myself and I'm sorry, not Davenport, but the Moline Barber College, it's rewarding for us because we get to come in and chat with the kids, kind of give them some background of who we are. They give us a background of who they are, their ambitions, and Kayla Babers, which is she's the head of the AALS. She just asked this, for me to come in and join in. I mean, that's something I love to do. So, and I'm sure that I can speak on behalf of the Barber College because everybody come over, we're engaging, so everybody's involved. So it's a really good deal, really good deal. So, but I got through my passage was through AALS. I think we have one more minute. Yes, ma'am.
I work at Madison. Sherwin started in November for the Books and Barbers program. We had one barber and we had about 4 students that were willing to give a stranger a chance on a haircut. Fast forward to March and April, we had our quota full of 25 haircuts. We've had over 10 barbers. We've partnered with the Davenport Public Library to have a librarian drop off books at each event. Not only are they providing a free service for the family that's consistent monthly, and if you have multiple children in the home, it's pretty beneficial, but they do enjoy talking to the consistent barbers that come and establishing those relationships. Sometimes they like to have the barbers walk them back to class, and you kind of see them a little prouder, a little saunter, because they've got some cool sidekicks with them. So I guess the point in me taking your minute is that what he starts off is small, but the benefit within the community, it grows by word of mouth, it grows by example, it grows by modeling, and the kids are very thankful for the program.
Thank you very much. Did you have?
So I just want to highlight one thing from our conversation that we said earlier, which I think is probably one of the most powerful things you talked about. You talked about we are going to, no matter what, we're going to provide outstanding models for our students. And that's what's going to attract people towards ASWAS. And when you said I'm going to open it up to everybody because everybody needs this help, that's fantastic and wonderful. And you're always going to have those strong models that look like me standing up, delivering a message nobody else can, as we know is incredibly important. And so, Sherman, thank you so much, our whole team, for coming today, sharing with us, stepping up, and being what you just said. I try to write it down fast enough, so I'm going to reach out to you, forward with, I can't remember what you said, but that is brilliant. And that's exactly what we need to do, the intergenerational piece. So, Sherman, thank you so much for being here today.
I would also like to say that we're giving another summit over St. Ambrose on October 7th through the 9th. The same 3 speakers will be coming back in, and the reason why we have them is because everybody that's seen those speakers was so overwhelmed that they wanted them back this year, and they're anxious to come back. So I'll have more information forthright, and hopefully you guys come out and be a part of it as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our second presentation tonight, I believe, did you?
No, go ahead.
Oh,
You got the mic. Go right ahead.
with the mic troubles we're having tonight. For everybody here, for some reason, we upgraded our systems and mics 1 through 10. We have about 20 mics. They're just not working with the upgrade right now. So Justin's trying his best back there, but bear with us as we move forward with this. With us tonight, we have Margaret Buckton, and she is our fearless leader of the UEN and RSAI Rural Schools of Iowa. As we are a community, thank you, Dan. We are a school district that has multiple communities in it, which we have urban settings and we have rural settings. And so we belong to both of those as to be on top of issues and see the next steps. We're very fortunate to have someone like Margaret Buckton on the team. And Margaret, thank you so much for being here tonight. Greatly appreciate it. I know Dan wants to say something as well.
No. You did it. You did it. You took it.
Are you there? Are you with us, Margaret?
I am. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Very good. And Dan, you let me know when you're ready. The screen is so small, it's hard for me to tell what's going on there.
We are working on it right now, Margaret.
Okay. And there's no rush. I just don't want to keep you waiting when you're ready.
She'll probably want to share her screen. Yes. Okay.
Margaret, are you able to share your screen?
You know what? I'm not going to. I was going to, and I had 3 different documents, and I'll just email them your direction later. Since we have just 30 minutes or so, I think I'm just going to have a conversation with you, if that sounds good.
The floor is yours.
Okay. Well, thanks so much, President Goza and Superintendent Schneckloff and the entire board and Davenport community for allowing me to join you by Skype tonight. I'm going to give you a little history about the UEN and the Rural School Advocates of Iowa, and then hopefully tell you a little bit about what's going on at the legislature this week, or not going on, as the case may be. So the UEN started in 1985, so 37 years ago. 7 of the largest school districts in the state kind of got together and talked about some of the challenges of being an urban district with many, many buildings and many, many employees and many more students. And having a diverse student body that was not the experience of many of the other school districts in Iowa. So that was in 85. By the time they got to 1993, the UEN became a nonprofit association and has since extended membership to associate members. So in 2011, opened the door to other districts that were similar. Not exactly as large as our original Urban 8 districts. Now a district can ask to join the UEN if they have 2 or more high schools. So Ankeny, that now has 2 high schools, just joined this last year. And if they don't have 2 or more high schools, they have to meet certain criteria of diversity among their student body. And there are 6 different measures, and they must meet 4 of those. And they have to do with poverty and diverse makeup of ethnic background or non-English speaking students, students with disabilities, or just school district size or percent of immigrants. So there's a whole host of diverse indicators. And those districts that join now, we've had several, most recently Storm Lake, who is relatively small compared to urban districts, but they're majority minority and also have about 40% of their students in English language learner programs. So they can learn a lot from our urban districts, and our urban districts can learn a lot from them. In 2020, so just a few years ago, Lou Finch, who was the former very passionate executive director, retired, and we had Iowa School Finance Information Services start providing some of the administrative support for the organization, and transition that I became executive director, but I still am your legislative analyst, and that's what I spend most of my time doing, is talking to the legislature. Those 22 districts now represent 40% of the students in the state. But if you look at any of those diverse indicators, it's over 68% of the students who are eligible for free and reduced price lunch, or over 70% of the minority students in the state. And what part of what we bring to the conversation is that consideration for all students, and then also the importance of state policy, that it can't be one size fits all. And when that happens, then one size doesn't fit most. And our urban districts have some expertise in implementing programs and other things that make a difference for students. So from my connection with all of you, I get information about everything from school lunch programs to technology safeguards for students, all kinds of things, because we have now 17 job-alike groups that are director level staff within the Urban Education Network. And each of those, they're kind of self-regulating. So there are some of them that meet monthly, and there are others that meet just quarterly or so, and they share best practice. And if somebody made a really great a form for parents to sign for agreement or participation in something, they share that with each other, or they may have a good recommendation for a service or a provider that can solve a problem for you. So collectively, those 22 district director level staff spend a lot of time not recreating the wheel and sharing best practice. And I think many of our urban districts would say that's the greatest benefit of being in the UEN. There's no charge for any of that professional development or those meetings. And they build great relationships with each other and improve the capacity of every district participant to meet the needs of students. The Rural School Advocates of Iowa is a relative baby of an organization by comparison. RSAI just started in 2014, and with a dozen or so school districts that felt some of the same things the UEN did very early on, that their voice was not heard at the State House, that they had unique needs that had to be explained and represented. Although RSAI started small, they've now grown to over 160 school districts. There are, in addition to Davenport, Storm Lake is a member of both organizations, and Fort Dodge had just asked for some information about joining RSAI as well. And RSAI does not have any criteria for membership. A district of any size or any location can be part of RSAI. What they have is a very clear mission that the zip code of the student should not limit or determine the opportunities of education available for that student. And they've had some shared priorities with the Urban Education Network, and Davenport first joined RSAI when RSAI came out in favor of formula equity as one of their very first priorities, that the funding formula should fund every student equally. So I think that's how the partnership started, in figuring out how to get your equity mission across the state of Iowa and not just be in those few urban centers that were championing that particular equity issue. It's interesting. The UEN is now, with those 22 districts, has got solid representation in both the House and Senate and in both parties, both Republican and Democrat. The rural school advocates of Iowa tend to be represented more by Republican legislators, and that's not exclusively the case, but more so. And so the language that is used to advocate for the same priorities is a little bit different based on the organizations and who's delivering the message, but you share many of the same priorities. Adequate funding is number one on the list for both organizations. Teacher educator shortage, how are we going to attract and retain quality staff? And both the urban districts and the rural districts are in the same boat sometimes, in difficulty in attracting and recruiting, retaining staff in either those hard to staff buildings or hard to staff geographic locations. Mental health services for students has been on both of the organization's priority lists for several years now. The Senate actually did debate today a bill that would create a loan forgiveness program for mental health professionals, much the same way that we have for teachers that were in the top 25% of their class for that Teach Iowa Loan Forgiveness Program. And being able to engage in some of those conversations and how they can best benefit our students in our communities has been great collaboration with not just UEN and RSAI, but I would say both organizations work very closely with the School Board Association and School Administrators of Iowa, with Parents for Great Iowa Schools and the AEAs. We often kind of parse out which organization has the closest relationship with different legislators in order to get the most return on our advocacy energy, and if that makes sense to you. Before I get into the legislative work at the State House right now, I want to talk just a moment about governance. The UEN is governed by a steering committee, and Dan Goza has been on that committee for several years now as the representative from Davenport. It's made up of the original 8, we call them charter organizations, and those are the urban districts that had 2 high schools before they expanded to allow associate members in. And we have 4 superintendents and 4 board members from those 8 districts that form the steering committee. And then we invite all of the associate directors to also have a representative there. But that essence of urbanness that comes from those 8 charter districts is maintained in the governance model because a quorum is not established for that committee unless you have at least a majority of those 8 steering committee members there and part of the conversation. And we wanted to make sure that sense of urbanness, of diversity, of meeting the needs of all students was a really important part of the mission of the Urban Education Network. So I think I want to stop and pause and see if you have any questions about UEN or RSAI before I get into a little bit of a legislative update.
Director Beck has a question.
Thank you for coming, Margaret. So I guess I was surprised to hear that I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but that RSAI and UEN have very similar interests, but that you may have to speak a slightly different language to get the same point across. And I may have missed it at the beginning. Are we the only district that qualifies for both?
Well, any district can be a member of RSAI, so there's not a criteria by which you qualify. Davenport has been a member of RSAI for many years, since we started work on that formula equity provision, where the state cost per pupil and the district cost per pupil are still $140 apart, and every year we're chipping away at getting those closer together. So we're still working on that priority. Storm Lake is a member of both organizations as well, and Fort Dodge, who has been a member of the UEN for quite a while, has just asked for more information about RSAI, but Davenport really was a trailblazer. I would say the biggest difference in the organizations really is what it costs to be a full-fledged member. For RSAI, it's an annual dues of $750, which is a drop in the bucket for Davenport. I think it was seen at the time as a way to collaborate with other districts to help solve the problems that Davenport needed some support around the state in getting toward those solutions. For the UEN, our dues this last year were $10,500 per charter member. And then the associate members are slightly lower because they're much smaller districts and they don't have the same decision-making power as the steering committee leadership.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, one other thing I would mention too, one of the things that we worked on, the transportation equity, we do have, some people think that that's just a rural school district issue, and we have many of our districts that get some of that transportation equity who are urban because they have lots of territory they cover for busing, or like in the case of Davenport, you've got rivers and highways and things that kind of change what might otherwise be routing. So there are some of the districts, Waterloo, Ames, that get some of that transportation equity money, and they get a lot more than any rural district would.
I'm not seeing any other questions, Margaret.
Okay. So now the fun. We got through the first part of this session, and for schools, we say, well, as soon as they set the funding decision of state supplementary assistance, the per pupil cost, and that issue is behind us, then we start working on all the other policies that impact schools. And they set that rate at 2.5% within, almost within, it was like 35 days from the release of the governor's budget. And that also applied that growth factor to all of your categorical funds and then to all of your weightings like special ed and ELL and those things too. And they bumped up the transportation equity money just enough to get everybody at the state average. When the House passed that bill to send it over to the Senate, and they agreed with the governor's number on that 2.5%, they had $5 per pupil in the formula to close that equity gap, which is less than we would have wanted. We preferred the Senate's version of that, which was actually $10 per student. So they had $5 per student. They also passed, however, a different bill that had $19 million in supplementary one-time funding that would have been for inflationary costs schools are experiencing. And so the House wanted to go as high as 3% on SSA, but everybody knows it's about coming up with an agreement that the House, the Senator, and the governor can all support. So even though the governor has signed that 2.5%, and that is, as we know, inadequate to meet the needs that your school districts have right now, especially with an inflation factor that's above 8%, and with the requirement that you're going to settle salaries that are somewhere closer to that 3% factor, which is the maximum that could be ordered if a negotiation went to arbitration. That $19 million is still sitting in the Senate Appropriations Committee, and we don't know if it's going to get any additional attention in the Senate, but that's still out there as something that advocates could ask for. The biggest situation right now, the budget, which is about almost $9 billion that the state has to spend, and they carve it into 8 or 9 different budget bills. The House has passed all of those, including the Education Appropriations Bill. The only thing that they haven't acted on yet is the standings bill, which has state aid in it from the foundation formula. So that's a pretty big chunk of that spending in that bill. But all the others have been passed by the House and are sitting over in the Senate. And the Senate has passed Governor Reynolds' school choice omnibus bill, which includes education savings accounts. And those of us in the school community think of those as school vouchers. It carves out $5,300 per student to go to a private school. It would really impact districts like Davenport and Des Moines. I think it's got a strong connection with the geography of where private schools are with our urban education network districts. And we have so many concerns about that bill, not the least of which is we don't believe some of the data that's being shared about it. And I'll give you one example. The governor has talked a lot about the voucher plan in Florida. And the claim from those private school advocates is that public schools get better when you have competition from the private sector. In Florida, when they created their voucher plan, they had two tracks into it. One of them was for students with disabilities. And they now have over 26,000 students that have individual education plans who are no longer in the public school, who go to private schools. At the same time that they created this plan in Florida, they also created a really strict retention bill. You could not move from third grade to fourth grade until you were reading on grade level. And they have other benchmark grades where you cannot move forward until you're proficient. And those happen to align with the grades that are tested in NAEP, the National Assessment of Education Progress, which is the test score that's used to determine whether or not public schools are doing okay. And that second group of students not moving forward that are not yet proficient, there have been a series of private schools in Florida that have actually popped up to serve those students specifically, students that have test anxiety or just don't test well, or their parents want them to move on to the next grade regardless. So in Florida, we've actually removed two big populations of students that would tend to bring your test scores down. So indeed, Florida's public school test scores went from the middle of the pack up to the top in the nation, but they're testing far fewer of those students with disabilities, ELL students, or students that are non-proficient because of the retention issue. So when we look at any of the public policies associated with this, and I think this is one of the strengths of the UEN, we spend a lot of time looking at data that comes from a scientific basis that looks at controlled studies and sees how students of similar situations fare in both public school and private school, and then what's happening to the public school as a result of the voucher proposals in other states. And we've shared a lot of data with our members, with legislators about it, I hope that it's sufficient to keep the House resistant. Their bill that was sent over to them March 31st is still sitting in the House Appropriations Committee. We don't believe they have the votes in either that committee or in the House to move the bill forward. And so that's why the session right now is kind of at an impasse. The Senate won't move any of the budget until the House takes up the voucher bill. The House isn't going to take up the voucher bill until the Senate, at all. I don't think there's an until argument in there. They don't want to do it at all. So there are behind the scenes negotiations on that issue and then several other things too. So at the moment, we don't have a lot to report on what's going on because they aren't doing much. The House has a debate day scheduled for tomorrow to work on that Iowa workforce development bill. That is another one of the governor's priorities. And that doesn't have a lot in it that affects us other than one little provision that just came in an amendment that would require the Board of Educational Examiners to waive licensure fees for any applicants that are below 200% of the federal poverty level. And although that might not seem like a big deal if you're an electrician coming in from another state and just want to get an Iowa license, we know that so many of our graduates of teachers prep programs are college students who likely aren't working full-time while they're in college. So the cost to the BOEE has been penned at about $500,000, and we already know they struggle to turn around licensure requests and renewals with the staff they have. So we're a little concerned about that one. I'm hopeful that we can get that changed. So other than that, we're just kind of in this holding pattern until there are agreements, and we know that people have had great conversations with their legislators, and there still seems to be a pretty strong group of House Republicans that are reluctant to move that voucher bill forward. Any questions on that one before I talk about the transparency issue that's also part of that?
I'm seeing no questions, Margaret. You're knocking it out of the park.
Okay, so the transparency issue also has had an interesting direction of development. There were two different ideas that kind of responded to the governor's bill that was introduced early in the session. And with the governor's bill, it would have required everything that we use in a school that's instructional. So that would be textbooks, videos, worksheets, literature, books that we read, any kind of instructional materials, and the way that it was written, likely even the lesson plans of teachers. All of those things would have had to have been posted on a district website by August 23rd for the first semester before school starts. And we know that that's not a very fluid or responsive way to plan instruction. We want to plan instruction along the way as we see how our students are doing and what skills they've mastered, and make sure that the instructional materials are responsive to that classroom of students. So the Senate came up with their version of the bill that was a parents' rights bill. And it said that parents should have the right to know what materials that their child will be exposed to in class, and to know who's teaching their children, to be able to access their children reasonably during the school day, to know what library books are in the library, those kinds of things. But it's I would say, a much gentler version compared to what was in the governor's bill. And we still have a little bit of concern about confidentiality for counselors. But other than that, you can comply by just giving parents read-only access to your instructional management system. And most school districts are close to being able to do that if they don't already. So the compliance on the parents' rights bill from the Senate is easier to deal with, and they give you a little bit of time to do that. And then also you're not required to have an electronic card catalog for your library and have that posted. But if you don't, you'd have to give parents access if they wanted to see what's in the library. The House took a different approach. They did kind of a rewrite of the bill, and they more narrowly defined instructional materials. And so that would be core materials that are written for elementary and secondary education for that purpose, and that took some things off the plate of what the teacher would have to post. But then they also gave some time. It could be as much as 7 days later. So you didn't have to post things at the beginning of the school year. It would give you time to be responsive to student learning throughout the year. The other thing about the governor's original bill, which was really something that we were opposed to, was the ability to withhold state foundation aid from any school district that was in non-compliance. And there was no opportunity to correct a non-compliance. The House's bill instead gives the school district and the school 14 days after being notified of noncompliance to correct it before there would be any of those kinds of consequences. And even though we still say that's a short timeline, it's much better than what was in the original governor's version. So the Senate has just kept the House bill at bay. After it was passed by the House, it's over in the Senate. They amended the governor's bill with their parents' rights version. And this is all very complicated with all these different things in it. So we created a tracking document, a rubric, so you could see what was in the original governor's bill, what's in the parents' bill of rights, what's in the House's transparency bill, and kind of using that to work through where we would advise the compromises to happen. when it's all said and done, we know it's going to be much better than what was started out with at the beginning of the year. And this is just one of those things where we have taken the approach that we really want to engage parents in the learning of students. And for those parents that that can and are willing to and are excited to do that, we want to facilitate that in a way that is not disruptive of the educational environment or does not create a lot of work for our staff. So what's a reasonable approach to that? The fiscal note on both of those bills, both the Parents' Rights Bill and the Transparency Bill from the House side, show more than $20 million that would be spent statewide by schools in creating that teacher time for training on how to use an information management system and the time to upload materials kind of on the fly as you're going through the course of a semester. And so it's not without some cost. And of course, we hate unfunded mandates, especially in a year in which the cost per student only went up 2.5%. So we continue to make that case. But we're grateful for the progress on the how the policies have improved, if not necessarily the rhetoric. There's still some rhetoric that's difficult, but I'm hoping we get out of the session with something that's manageable, that has a timeline that you can live with, that has that that real intentional positive purpose of parent involvement, and then does not include the vouchers. So that's our goal, and I'm hopeful that by the end of session we'll make it. But we're still asking people to stay in touch, especially with their House members, about the reasons why that voucher plan is not good for students. And so our call to action that's posted on the website from March 31st is still valid and has the right talking points in there for you.
Director Beck.
Thank you, Margaret. Could you share that rubric that you have for tracking the transparency bill? Because I think that's a really important one.
You bet.
Also, my other question was, we already have policies that parents and people can see what's in our, for example, school library. Those already exist. So I guess I've been sort of confused about how this is any different from what's already available. If somebody calls up and says, I want to know what my kid is learning in class, teachers generally provide that.
Right. So of course, you'd have to have a policy, and I would imagine the policies that you have are compliant. I think in some of the stories that were told at the beginning of the session, there were some concerns that teachers had not been compliant with their local school board policies. So when the governor put together her plan, she had some very forceful language in there on timelines, so that if a parent not just requested access to the book or wanted to know what it was, but wanted to have it considered to remove from the library, there was a very short timeline for the district to respond, for the board to handle an appeal, and if the parent didn't like the way the board handled it, then to go on to the State Board of Education. And so it added all these layers of appeal to the process. So that's one thing where if the governor's bill was still moving forward, we'd have some big concerns about this. I would say the Parents' Rights Bill is more of a practice of codifying what your current policies have, so that you do have to offer access to the parent to the library at a time when it's convenient for them, or answer their questions, or let them access through your information management system what books their child will be reading or what materials they will see. And I imagine most school districts already do that.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Margaret? There are no more questions, Margaret.
Excellent. Well, President Goza, I look forward to seeing you at the next steering committee meeting that's coming up in May. And for the rest of you, don't ever hesitate to reach out. I will share that transparency rubric. I've got it in the shared documents in the Skype here, but I'm not exactly sure how Brenda can access that. So I will, as soon as we're off here, I'll email that to her to share with all of you.
Thank you, Margaret. We appreciate you taking the time.
You bet. Thank you as always.
Thank you.
Take care.
You as well. 2 presentations done. All right. Now move on to student board reports. Whichever one wants to start first. Don't all jump at once. Oh, you don't have a microphone either?
There we go. So at Central, months in the making, the Central TAG students planned and organized the TEDx Youth event for the first time at our Performing Arts Center on April 6th under the supervision of TAG teacher Miss Joni Nelson and speech teacher Mr. Nick Newman. There were 6 speakers in total, 3 of which were Central students, and there was 1 Central alum. Freshman Benny Toko spoke about bullying, sophomore Nettie Cantor spoke about biases and algorithms, and junior Karina Smith did a spoken word piece on the effects of choosing to be silent. Our alum that came was Josiah Blanton, and he spoke about how to prioritize mindset over skill set to reach success. There were 2 speakers outside of Central, Haley DeGrieve, who spoke on mental health, and Megan Clark on the misconceptions of livestock farming. Senior Toby Wood and sophomore Cece Barnett helped MC the event, and students who helped organize the event were Tavia Kirk, Olivia Malone, Clea Phillips, Lindsay Schottfeld, Delia Erickson, Melissa Herrera, and myself, Madre Shakande. Central's arts were also put on showcase during the event as junior Sam Bevins played the saxophone to open, and juniors Amy Brandt and Elizabeth Tubbs performed a cello duet during the event. You can find all the talks that were presented on the YouTube TEDx YouTube channel. So we are very proud of all our speakers and the hard work they put in over months to, perfect their speeches, write their speeches, and to memorize their speeches, as that is a requirement for all TED Talks. Our dance team, Blue Illusion Dance, had a vendor fair on Saturday to support their team as well as local businesses in our Grenzing Gymnasium. And earlier in the month, Davenport Central Winter Guard won 2nd place at the Midwest Color Guard Circuit Championships in Naperville. The Midwest Circuit is made up of Winter Guards from Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Iowa, and the Central Winter Guard was seated 5th place starting the weekend and advanced to finals to take home the 2nd place medal. They were the first Iowa Guard to medal at the Circuit Championships since the mid-1970s, so we're very proud of them. Also, there were 14 Central students selected for the Quad City Times Salute to Academic Achievements. Selected for overall academic standing were Brendan Bloomer and Rin McDonald, the arts, Nathan Kern and Eleanor Rubaclava Hernandez, humanities, Toby Wood, Brighton Hall, leadership, Matre Shirkande and Lily Furch, math and sciences, Kyle Balk and Lily Tackett, vocational education, Corbin Samatovich and Isabel Critton, and young journalism, Soli Augsburger and Oliver Klipsch. Also, prom is coming up this Saturday, so we've been very busy with that, and our Spirit Week started today. So today was Highlighter Day. Tuesday is Country versus Country Club. Wednesday is Disney Channel Day, so we're having everyone wear like early 2000s clothing. Thursday is teacher-student switch, so teachers dress like students, students dress like teachers, and we're encouraging teachers to like bring Atomic and that kind of stuff to like see what all the hype is about. And Friday is Adam Sandler Day, so we're excited for that.
So fun, I love that. Alrighty, so over at North, we had a very exciting weekend. We brought back the very popular Dancing with the Stars event. So basically what that is all of our athletic teams put together a dance, and then they will compete for our People's Choice and Judges' Choice awards. And so the student council organizes the whole event, obviously, but they were able to bring back over $550 from ticket sales alone, and over $600 for teams to be using during their seasons. Dollars count as points for their votes, for how that goes. And so there were obviously 7 teams for the main 7 winter and spring sports that were competing, and the softball team actually went home with both of the awards. They actually ended up getting over 344 votes, which means they won $344 for their season. So that's very exciting for them. Go them. Um, all teams reported having a great time, and thanks to the event's great success, Student Council is planning to bring this event back in the future, and we're hoping to actually expand it to other areas as well. The dual enrollment students also had a very exciting day today. They received their caps, gowns, and tassels for their graduation ceremony from Scott Community College on May 7th at the Tax Slayer Center. The ceremony will be held at 1 p.m. And in case you were not aware, this does not mean that we are done. We actually have to finish out the year like the rest of the seniors because we have high school classes to do. So, but that caps and gowns, that's very exciting. The general population of North is getting very, very hyped for this weekend and prom. So prom tickets are on sale in the activities office, and all upperclassmen students are welcome to attend and vote on their prom royalty from their emails with a Google form, which our king and queen will be announced at the dance on Saturday. So that will be very fun to see who it is. And this week is also Spirit Week for us at North. I'm just going to list our themes because I think ours are cool too. So we had a slumber party Monday. So it was like pajamas and slippers and like that kind of thing. And then tomorrow is Iowa versus Iowa State. So it's going to get a little heated. Go Hawks. But also on Wednesdays, we're going to wear pink like the Mean Girls. Throwback Thursday. And then our traditional blue and gold Fridays. So that'll be very fun. I'm excited. Okay.
Thank you. So as you can see, it's just me here tonight. Sarah's playing tennis against Comanche at home. Go Sarah. It's really cold and windy out. I'm not a fan. Yeah, unfortunately West Prom is May 7th, so we don't have anything exciting to share like they do, and we also don't have a Spirit Week, but it's okay. We're excited for the dance. First off is some stuff about the feeder schools. So Jackson is really kicking some butt at literacy. They're having a literacy night on April 29th from 4:30 to 6, and this will just make it easier for parents to learn how to do games and activities with their kids to improve their own child's literacy. And then at Wilson, they just had an all-school writing event about opinion writing. This teaches the students to love reading. Loving to read and write is crucial for being a successful DCSD student. Bluegrass was named one of the top 500 schools in the world for successfully achieving high Lexia standards. So that's pretty impressive because I remember Lexia when I was little. And then one of our staff members at West, Mr. Dave Schaefer, he just created a 40-foot long mural that's going to be put at the Veterans Memorial Park in Davenport. If you just look them up in the Times, there's like all these great pictures. It's 40 feet long and it's crazy beautiful. Had no clue who was doing this until it was in the Times, and that's just awesome. You have to look at that, and it's all about the veterans and armed forces. Some of you guys were here at this next thing, the Career Academy, the CTE event. So West High School had 23 students. 5 of them are going into IT. 18 are going into vocational welding. And also a fun fact is West leads the whole entire state in apprenticeships, and that's awesome sauce. Our band just returned from DC last night around like 12:30 in the morning. They had lots of fun, very successful. I haven't been able to hear as much about what they did and everything because they're also tired, understandably, but I will have more to say about that next week. Our art students are doing amazing. 136 works are on display all over the QC, and West has first and second place People's Choice, and 19 West students and then 1 teacher. 5 students earned 5 different prestigious awards. And then lastly, I know it was so cold outside today because I'm in outdoor ed, and we had the pleasure of having the Scott County Conservation come teach us how to use compasses. So it was a lot of fun getting involved with the community, even though it was really chilly. Mike and Emily from the Scott County Conservation Group were awesome, and it was great to get involved with Scott County people. Oh, also, the CTE teacher had a quote, which I think is pretty awesome. Awesome. He said, "Our building, our side of town, our district is filled with these different kinds of smart kids, and they're finally getting the recognition and opportunities they deserve. Go West, CTE." I think that's pretty awesome. That's it.
Thank you very much. I always enjoy all of your reports, so thank you very much. Board reports. Director Klein Jerome.
I also attended the apprenticeship signing, and to see 1/3 of the 60 kids that went through the program came from Davenport. That was awesome. The majority of them in welding, as you said, and it was like, wow, what an experience. I also attended Central High musical, The Little Mermaid, Thursday night. We have such talented students, not just in athletics, not just CTE, but musicals, fine arts, as you said, also the arts. And so it's great to be a Davenport student right now.
Director Poston.
On April 12th, I attended the Facilities Master Planning Committee meeting at the Children's Villages West. Again, I want to thank the committee that's been working hard on this for the past few months. And also I want to thank the staff at Children's Villages for giving the tour of the facilities. I also attended the apprenticeship signing. Congratulations to those students. And a big thank you to Mr. Zinn, the welding instructor at Davenport West, for everything that he does for these welding students. On April 23rd, I also attended the musical at Central, The Little Mermaid. And again, to see a production like this, just like the musicals at West and North, these students are fantastic. I just can't believe all the time and effort that's put into this. And so my congratulations go out to those students and the staff and faculty that put on these programs. And then one other thing, sympathy goes out to the Ira Dunzer family. The Davenport School District has been blessed with an individual like this through his coaching and teaching, and he has made such an impact on so many students and athletes that have come through the Davenport system. So again, sympathy goes out to his family.
Director Hayes. Oh, does that one not work now?
Total comic. We attended Superintendent Schneckloff, President Ghost, and myself. We did the debrief with the IASB last week. I also attended the high school apprenticeship signing day. President Ghost, Superintendent Schneckloff, and myself, we also did the Hall of Honor induction at Central High School, where Chief Sikorsky, Valerie Garr, and Clemens Werner were inducted. Yesterday, I had an experience that I really surprised that I really enjoyed as much as I did. I went to the East versus West basketball tournaments yesterday at the Betplex. There was thousands of kids there and playing basketball all day. And I didn't realize that Tori and Rivers from Sudlow had a team out there. A lot of students from the district played on the various teams. Those students came from all the neighboring states, Indiana, Minnesota, Illinois, and it was just a nice time from 10 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock yesterday evening. Today we had a data wall meeting to discuss what type of equipment, not necessarily what was going to be on the data wall, but Gary Sloat needed some information as to equipment to purchase to make this possible. And lastly, Director Poston mentioned the Dunsworth family. The entire board would like to express our condolences. In addition, I would also like to add the Lackey Schneckloff family for their loss in the last couple weeks as well.
Are there any other board reports? I don't got nothing. Director Hayes stole mine. All right, seeing none, we'll move on to communications. Open forum. Open forum is a time for members of the community to give input at a board meeting regarding school district issues or concerns. Individuals who want to speak, please fill out an open forum request and give it to the board secretary prior to open forum. The form is available in hard copy for in-person attendees or on the school board page of the district's website for those who want to participate virtually. Virtual participants must email their request to Brenda T. at tbrin@davenportschools.org by 3 p.m. on the day of the board meeting. The board meeting will not act on any issue presented during open forum if it was not published as an agenda item. Iowa Open Meetings laws prohibit action on any issue that is not on the agenda. The president may set the amount of time allowed for individuals to speak. The board asks that no charges or complaints be made against individual employees of the district or community. Remarks that reflect negatively on the character or motives of any person will be called out of order. Are there any virtuals? Okay. I lost count of how many we had. I know we have quite a few. 2 minutes. When you come up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. And I apologize in advance if I butcher anybody's name. Up first, we have Angela Ryer. Thank you, Miss Ryer. Up next, Sigrid Zeringer. Zeringer, did I get that? 2 for 2.
Hello? Oh, my goodness. My name is Sigrid Zeringer, and I live at 30 Hillcrest Avenue in Davenport. I, too, am a McKinley parent, and my husband, Lyle Zeringer, wrote to some of you on the board, and I encourage you to read what he wrote. He wrote something very personal about and impassioned about Mr. Wendell. I know we can't make decisions here. I know that there are a lot of duties of confidentiality and a lot of concerns that you are dealing with, but I think there's value in you hearing what Mr. Wendell means to us, and I hope that he knows by us coming tonight what he means to us as well. I think the theme with him is community and connection. As Angie mentioned a moment ago, he greets every morning, rain or shine, every student, every parent by name, and that is astonishing to me, that he takes the time to get to know everyone at that level. And I think that in doing that, he is telling everyone, I see you, I value you, you are welcome, we are a community. He's saying all of that in that kind of a greeting. And that's tremendously meaningful. And he also, he takes the time to know each child on their own level and in a way that they're receptive to. I have a quiet child who can be difficult to read, but if he is having an off day, Mr. Wendell knows that just by the way he's walking down the hallway. And that is a true gift. And that's not something we as a community should take for granted. And it's just something that makes him unique among all the educators I've ever come across. And I went to school a long time, and he really stands out. But I just want to say, would any school be lucky to have him? Absolutely. Was it tremendously disruptive to see him gone? Yes, it was. And we want this to move forward in a way that's productive and fair, and for you all to keep in mind what a tremendous person he is. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next.
Thank you.
Yeah. Up next, we have Alexander Barney.
Hello? Can you hear me? All right. My name's Alexander Barney. I also am a parent of a McKinley child, Abel Barney, who's in the first grade. My address, by the way, 237 Ridgewood Avenue, Davenport, Iowa. So, President Gosa, I heard you talking at the beginning about how you value people who are dedicated to action. That is Mr. Wendell Freeman. Superintendent Schneckloth, you talked about people who were meaningful and meant something to children. That is Wendell Freeman. I want to tell you briefly about how my family has been impacted and how I have seen him impact other children. My son, Abel, likes to wear dresses. And when he first started attending school, my wife and I were very concerned about how the staff and the children at McKinley would react. And we got to school. Wendell opened the door to our car, said hello, learned Abel's name on the first day. By the end of the week, he knew all of our names. He was telling him how good he looked. He was encouraging him. He was building him up. And we will forever be grateful to him for that. I've also volunteered in Abel's classroom, and as a result, I've gotten to see how Wendell interacts with the other kids. In the hallways, he gets hugs. If a kid is having a bad day, he goes to Wendell for encouragement. I've gotten to see how he deals with kids who are having disciplinary issues. Now, he never makes them feel bad. He builds them up, encourages them, makes them better, and that's what we're looking for our, for the faculty, for the staff at our school. We want Mr. Freeman back at McKinley, but if he can't come back, we want to make sure that all of you understand what an asset he is to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie Durrett? McDevitt? McDevitt. All right. It's a V. I'm sorry. I thought it was. Yeah. I could have got that one.
Hello. My name is Stephanie McDevitt. I'm 30 years old and high functioning autistic. I work at St. Ambrose in the cafeteria. I own Lucky's Beauty Bus and host Toiletries for Teens giveaway. I have a 13-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son who is autistic as well, alongside my nieces and nephews. We as a family have struggled enough to make it to where we are today. The least that we expect is to feel safe, especially when sending our children to school. I was let down by the justice system my whole life, from start till now. I was beaten, raped, chewed up, and spit out by everyone and everything in my life. I never got justice or peace, but I expect better for my children and all the other children out there who do not have someone to stand up for them, just like I didn't. I come forth today with a few concerns that I have. Some are new and some have been going on, but nothing has been put to a stop, and that's why I'm here today, because I don't know where else to go to. 911, I've tried that. They don't really give a damn about you. They would rather push you to the next person or not help at all just to save some paperwork. I could keep going, but I won't. I will get straight to the point. Thank you. First off is bullying. I know that this is an issue that we cannot really control, but we really have to try and find a way to get it together, because if not, I will lose my daughter, I will lose my nephew, I will lose myself. The things that these kids say to my children, which I'm not saying she's perfect, but it is outrageous. Being called gay, ran over by a bike, or a hoe, or a whore, anything like that is unacceptable. When my 13-year-old is coming home telling us how she wants to take her own life because of the things that the kids at school are saying, that is unacceptable. Just a few weeks ago, she got beat up at school. This girl came up from behind and just started punching her in the head over and over and over while she was on the ground, saying how her mom didn't love her and so on, which obviously I do. My daughter is one of the smaller kids in class, and of course she gets picked on. Now they call her names, and that's really what's pushing her over the top, and where she doesn't even want to be alive anymore because she hates herself. And then standing up for my nephew as well, who has been gay since he was 3 years old, every day getting bullied and beaten up at school because of how he dresses or talks or acts. He has tried to commit suicide already, and when does this stop? How many kids do have to die for us adults to get our shit together, to keep these kids under control? I know it's easier said than done, but that's why we need to find a way before it's too late. I have gone to the school multiple times and nothing seems to change. These kids are running wild. They're smoking vapes in the bathroom, having sex in the bathroom, sending nudes, all kinds of things, all underneath the school's watch. Which brings me to my next portion, which is the Chromebooks and the Google Meets. I'm very old-fashioned and I do not know much about electronics and technology nowadays. Even during the pandemic, when the kids were on the electronical learning, I was completely unaware of everything and how to use it, and I still am. That was until last Thursday, which has been a couple weeks since now, obviously. I had confiscated my daughter's phone and went through all of her Snapchat messages and pretty much figured everything out, which also needs to be addressed. These parents need to check their kids' Snapchat because they're sending nudes to each other and they can all get charges pressed upon them even if they're underage, which I have gone to the police about, and it is very true. But they are waiting for us parents to go to bed to get into their Google Meets to have group chat orgy things. They're sending nudes to each other, FaceTiming, and all that on the school computers. I'm not sure how they do it. I know that they have codes, and that's how they get into their meetings and things, and that's what they're doing, all under the school's watch. They need to either completely remove the computers from the children's possessions, or they need to completely figure out a new way around their system to prevent these kids from getting into private chat rooms with each other after hours, or practically unless a teacher is there. That concludes my concerns for this. Thank you for listening, but before I go, like I had mentioned before, I host a Toiletries for Teens Christmas giveaway. This will be our second year. It will be held in December around the same time as Toys for Tots down at the Sugar Shack in Davenport. It is for ages 11 through 17 for free hygiene items, free clothing, and food. That way they have something for Christmas, even if it's something that they need versus something that they want. So if you could help get the word out, we need participators, donors, and volunteers for the day of. It is really a blessing to be able to help these children out and see the smile on their faces. So if you could get the word out, we need anything. And then I'm not too sure where or how I would be able to become a motivational advocate speaker for junior high and high school kids, like back when we were in school and someone would come and talk to the kids, would sit in the gymnasium and speak about things that are hard to talk about. I would like to do that. I want to get the word out about the toiletries for all boys and girls, to know that they are welcome to come, but also to go over hard subjects to talk about. Some kids need to hear about, especially adding the top subjects that I had added in after I wrote this. About abuse and now sex trafficking and predators, Snapchat, and all that. So if anyone could point me in the right direction, I would love to talk more and share some of my personal experiences of why I think I would be a great fit for this position and role in the community. Thanks, a concerned mother.
Miss McDivitt, can you state your name and address for the record, though?
Stephanie McDevitt, and I live at 300 North Bridge Lane in Walcott.
Thank you.
Temporarily. Thank you.
Up next, Claire Harney.
I'm Claire Harney, and I live at 237 Ridgewood. I'm here to also talk about Mr. Wendell. I'm the parent of a first grader, Abel Barney, and I'm concerned that Mr. Wendell Freeman was suddenly transferred away from our school a few weeks ago. We lost one of our only staff members of color. On a deeper level, though, we've lost a gifted educator, somebody who is an empath, a vocal advocate for kids of all types, and a mentor. I know of many kids who are heartbroken and confused that he is suddenly gone. I myself had a hard time in school growing up and would have loved to have someone like Mr. Wendell looking out for me. I went to help at my first book fair a few weeks ago, and a lot of old memories came back. I'm new to PTA. I saw a lot of kids wandering around with some change and a few crumpled dollars trying to see what they could afford. There were groups of siblings and friends trying to make a few dollars stretch so everyone could get something. Seeing the prices of the books, they were drawn to the eraser pen counter, where I was directed to make sure that no one was stealing anything. It was horrifying. I didn't understand why the other grown-ups didn't have a problem with this. At the end, Wendell came in looking irritated and checked the prices of the books. And I told him that I would get books for the kids he was worried about. And he mumbled something and he walked out. A few days later, I found out that he bought lots of books for different kids that week on a very small salary. It made me feel like someone else saw these kids and like he would have seen me as a kid. I'm a physician now, taking care of families like the one I had growing up. I have the money to comfortably send my kids to private school, but it's important to me that my kids are in classes with economically and culturally diverse groups of students. But most importantly, I want them to see a diverse staff who model and teach them about empathy and inclusivity. I hope that you will continue to hire people like Mr. Wendell in the future and consider sending him back to us part-time. I strongly suggest that the district offer him help to get the credentials he needs to be an official school counselor, and I will donate towards that end if necessary.
Thank you, Ms. Harney. Up next, Joanna Connors.
Hello? There we go.
Okay. My name is Joanna Connors, and I live at 1708 Eastmere Drive. I have 2 kids at McKinley. They're in 5th and 6th grade, and I too am here for Mr. Wendell. I had actually already started drafting an email because Teacher Appreciation Week is next week. And I always like to call out the staff that is, going the extra mile. So I'm going to read a little bit from that. I sent it today to a few of the board members, but I'll just read from that. So when the students came to school on Monday and saw that Mr. Wendell was not there to let them out of the car, I think they were all a little shocked because it was the first day of testing. And of course, they really rely on him for emotional support and just encouragement. So then by Wednesday, everybody kind of started asking questions like, where is he at? And then on Thursday, the 6th graders went to see The Little Mermaid at McKinley and saw him there with the Jefferson kids. And so that started this whole firestorm of the kids just, why is he with them? What happened? So anyways, we moved our kids to the Davenport Community School District because we really liked your back to school action plan for COVID from a local parochial school, which my husband attended, and he was kind of scared to send the kids to Davenport schools, but I went to Grant and JB and Central. So I had always kind of been pushing for it anyways. But at the first day of school, we pulled up and there's like all the staff members there. They're all there to welcome them. Everybody, had masks on and everybody's just so excited to be there. Of course, Mr. Wendell was one of them along with the rest of the amazing staff there. So anyways, by the end of the week, he knew me, he knew my kids, he knew the neighbors' kids that also rode home with me. He also knew my mother, who picks up the kids one day a week. And he would get on the radio every time he saw us, and he's like, Connors, Casillas kids, get out here, your ride's here. So obviously very helpful, and for them to be recognized when they start a new school. Throughout last year, he would spontaneously check in on the kids and on their ST and Lexia scores, and if they were completed, he was purchasing prizes and treats and all kinds of things with his own money and giving them to them. And the kids knew that, so it kept them motivated to do their work outside of school, especially while they were at home. It was really hard on all of us. So he also gives every kid positive feedback and gives them keep them focused on working hard to hit their goals. Let's see what else here. So then this year started, and we had our two boys, 5th and 6th grade, both played on the DC football team, the little Pee Wee team. And Mr. Wendell, Mr. Eric, Miss Tuttle, there was a whole group of them, and they came and cheered the kids on at every game. The games they couldn't be at, they would ask them about it on the weekends. How's it going? If you want to stay in sports, you got to keep your grades up, just to keep them motivated and really interested in the sport so they can move forward. Same thing with basketball, still continuing to support them the whole time. I know for a fact that he was offered a position at one of the parochial schools just 3 weeks ago, and when I pulled up and asked him about it, because I had heard about it from one of their staff members, he said, I could never leave my McKinley kids. That's exactly what he said to me. And I'm like, oh, thank God. So anyways, I just want you guys to know how special he is to us. I hope that you would consider sending him back. I don't know exactly what happened, but I do know that he is very special to our school. That's it.
Hi, good evening. My name is Marina Gomez. My address is 427 Iowa Street here in Davenport. My daughter goes to McKinley. She's been there for about 3 years, and I didn't know about Mr. Wendell's departure. Well, I don't know the circumstances still, but I had thought he was on vacation. My daughter said the other day when we were getting out of the car, like everybody else said, God, I miss Mr. Wendell so much. And her voice started to crack. And I said, what are you talking about? I said, is he on vacation or something? And she says, no, he's gone. He's just gone. And I said, what do you mean? She's like, I don't know. He's not here anymore. And, I was shocked. And I thought, I thought he could never leave McKinley. But I had just written a few months ago to Mr. Vincent, our principal at McKinley, what a star they had in their midst. I have been to several functions, roller skating parties and book fairs, like Mrs. Harney mentioned. Mr. Wendell just stands out. Like everybody said, he knows everybody's name. He comes to the door. The kids, all of the kids. It doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter what color they are. None of that matters. It's these little lives that he impacts, and it's like they're a part of him. And it's like they feed him and they feed off of him. It's amazing. It's the most amazing light I have ever seen. And then to hear that he was, I don't know what happened, but he was not of his own choice to leave or, it breaks my heart. I mean, whoever gets him, if he's at Jefferson, more power to them. They have gained the brightest star I have ever seen. And I just felt you guys need to know. And I mean, if we can't have him back, then good luck to him wherever he is at, because he's an amazing, amazing educator. Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, that is it for consent agenda, and we're going to take a quick 5-minute recess, and then we will start back up.
Testing. Hello. Testing.
Hello?
Hey, Dave, we're on a quick recess. We'll be coming back here. I think that was Big Dave. We'll be
Yeah,
coming
that
back
was
here
me.
in a couple seconds
No worries.
or minutes whenever President goes to bring us back.
No worries. Do you all still want us to present, or do y'all want us to come next meeting?
Back working.
All right, we are back. May I have a motion for the consent agenda?
Mr. President,
Yes, Director Hayes.
I move that the consent agenda is accepted as written.
Second.
Thank you, Director Klein-Drome. The motion for the consent agenda has been made by Director Hayes, seconded by Director Klein-Drome. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Director Hayes?
Yes.
Yes.
Director Klein-Drome?
Yes.
Director Poston?
Yes.
I probably don't need to hold that anymore. Director Potts? Yes. Director Gordon?
Yes.
Director Beck?
Yes.
Thank you. I am going to abstain from the vote, as I also said on the AEA board. With that, motion passes. May I have a motion on approval of bills? Director Poston?
Mr. President, recommend the board approve the following resolution. Resolved, all claims presented to the board having been duly certified as correct by the treasurer, reviewed by the administration and board members, and they are hereby audited and allowed as just claims and warrants drawn on the treasury for the several amounts. Further resolved, the payment of claims and salaries be approved as presented for the periods 4/6/22 to 4/19/22.
Thank you, Director Poston. Is there a second?
Second.
Ooh. I think Director Gordon got you. All right, the motion's been made and seconded for the approval of bills. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Director Poston? Yes. Director Gordon?
Yes.
Director Gordon? Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
Yes.
Director Potts? Director Klein-Drome? Yes. Director Beck? Director Klein-Drome? My vote is yes. Motion carries. Now we have an echo. Motion carries. Now we have an echo. This is awesome. Superintendent report. Superintendent report.
Thank you. Well, as approved in the consent agenda, I would like to welcome Ms. Courtney Olson as the Director of Equity and Learning Supports for Davenport Community Schools. We are so lucky to have her. I would like to highlight a couple of things about Courtney. She is now, this echo, it throws me off. So I'm gonna just keep speaking until it goes. But Courtney has been with us over the last 3 years, helping us implement key initiatives like crisis response, violence prevention. She all of the professional development that was done through our accreditation issues, she helped design and help deliver. I personally watched her do incredibly difficult things in the realm of special ed, and done it with style and grace. And we couldn't be more fortunate to have Courtney joining our team. And I'm very proud of the work that she has done, and I'm very excited to see the work that she is going to do in the future. And with that being said, Courtney, I'd give an opportunity for you to talk at this moment during this report, if you don't talk at this moment during this report, if you. There we go. That one.
No, use the microphone, but you gotta do a song. No, use the microphone, but you gotta do a song.
I think it's working. All right. Thank you, Superintendent Schneckloff. So I'm very excited for this opportunity. For the past 10 years, I've been serving within Davenport, initially as a school psychologist, and then I moved into special education and school improvement leadership at the Mystic Bend AEA. So I've been serving Davenport for some time now, and through that experience, I really have seen the great potential of the district. And as TJ has mentioned, I've been a part of the progress the last few years, so that's been really exciting. So I'm very excited to take this next step in my career and officially join the Davenport Community School District team. It is the work ahead that really is what propelled me into applying for this job. I know there are still a lot of complex issues that we have to figure out, but I firmly believe that there are solutions when you attack them by being student-centered, when you believe that students, families, and staff are worth it. So that's how I'm entering this position. I'm excited for the work, so thank you.
Courtney, thank you so much for being here tonight, and congratulations, and we're very fortunate that you're joining our team. Thank you very much.
Great report. Committee reports. You already gave your data wall ad hoc in the wrong time, so I won't ask you on that one. Is there a finance committee report?
Finance Committee met on April 21st. We reviewed the monthly fund report and key measures. Our UAB is better than what was budgeted. Our solvency is strong. You'll notice that total expenditures will be increasing, but that's due in part to the large ESSER payments that have come in. We also spent some time going over the transportation study, and then also spent some time going over the revenue purpose statement. And Kevin, do you anything else you want to put in there, or Karen?
Okay. I'm just gonna sit right here if that's all right. Okay. All right. Okay. I don't care which one you start with, Brenda. Either one's fine. She has a monthly fund report up there. As you can tell, I always highlight. Keep in mind, we are through 75% of the way through the year, so we're at a quarter mark. You'll see that our revenues, especially in our federal revenues, are exceeding the prior year. That's due to more ESSER funds coming in. That's the major effect there. Otherwise, they're relatively steady. Some of the local and the state are inversely proportionate due to the change in enrollment and the amount of funding that we get from the state. Scrolling down on the expenditure side, you'll see the two key things are salaries and benefits, and they go hand in hand. It's hard to compare apples to apples when you have an influx of funds or a decrease of funds. In this case, in the current fiscal year, we have all these ESSER funds that we're pumping into place. This is yet to have the payment that we made on April 1st. This is through March. So that large payment to staff that are paid monthly will be coming, but it does include some of our support staff that were paid towards the end of March. For comparison's sake, between fiscal year 21 and 22, big differences between those numbers. Realistically, if things were apples to apples, you would see a decline in our salary expense. However, in that $84.2 million, we have $4 million in ESSER salaries that were not in FY21. There's about $1 million of those dollars that we moved out of TSA into salary for administrators. And we're also 4.9%, doesn't sound like a lot, but 4.9% days ahead of last year on our calendar because we expense things as the month goes, not actual what we paid staff. So you're going to see you won't see this even out until we get to the end of June, but June will be a lighter month accrual wise because we have fewer days in the month of June. We are on time for payments, and the benefits likewise changed with especially our FICA and IPERS. So that's why those two are in that area. The point I want to make about the surplus deficit that you see, the negative 12 million, that seems like it's a lot, but keep in mind all these ESSER funds that we're spending, they're 3 months in arrears and usually 4 to 5 months in arrears because it takes the state 4 to 6 weeks to pay us after we do our quarter report. So for example, last week was our due date to file for all of the ESSER funds that we had from January through March. Those dollars of revenue are not in that amount. So if you took those $4 million out, we would be under $8 million in net deficit. The other point to make is April 15th is our big tax date. Everyone filed their taxes. We got our property taxes to us. You're going to see that 12 million flip to a much larger positive number when we close for the month of April. And if you go to, I guess I'm going to ask if there's any questions on that one before I go to the key measures. Okay. On the key measures, Kent alluded to this. Keep in mind, we made our large staffing changes to start this fiscal year. And when you start, especially less than 12-month staff, you don't start to see the effect of the change in staffing. Well, now that we're 3/4 of the way through, you're really starting to see a change when you're looking at our key measures. It's projected to be 9.2% of our UAB. That's really good right now, especially where we've been. I don't know if it's going to hold that strong, but when we're expecting to be at 6.7, we will outpace what we budgeted this year. The same is true in our solvency ratio. When you scroll down a little bit, you'll see that we're at 15% right on the button. That is the high end of the solvency ratio. I don't believe that's going to stay at 15, but we're going to be fairly strong compared to the 12% that was projected. And then I want to scroll all the way to the bottom, and this is worth mentioning. If you remember our last board meeting when we approved the amendment, what you see in the yellow box there, those are the amounts that we amended. The projected is what we have in this model, and you'll see it went from the support services in a non-instructional program where there's negative numbers above that. Now they're positive because we amended the budget. That's why we amend the budget, so we can say we're staying within the amounts that we project we're going to spend. So I wanted to highlight that. That's something I added to this report. I don't change anything on the report because it comes straight out of Forecast 5 to maintain the integrity. But I added this box so you can see exactly what the effect our amendment has. Any questions on that?
That concludes your Finance Committee report. There's nothing to report on legislative advocacy. LZAC.
The LCAT committee met last week, and we spent this meeting. It was a very small group this month, so we kind of started talking about how next year is going to look. And I think part of the plan is that the LCAT committee is going to get some of their plans from the COW meetings. We're going to kind of try and coincide them so that the committee is being afforded the same information that the board gets during COW meetings. So some of those presentations, they won't get the full presentation, but we're kind of trying to figure out how we want that to look so that we're all on the same page. We also discussed how we want the committee to report to the board, because that's one of the state it's like a law basically that we have to be advised by LSEAC and how we want that to look. And I don't remember if I mentioned this last month or not, because it was discussed then as well, that perhaps having some committee members come quarterly to speak at the COW meetings to the board to present information from that aspect, rather than me or Director Beck just coming and telling our observations, to get more community involvement and input. We also discussed the difference between vetting, brainstorming, and advisory, which are the three functions of the LSEAC committee. So that's kind of what we went over. We also discussed possibly extending the meeting from 60 to 90 minutes, but that has not been determined for sure. That's all.
Thank you, Director Gordon. Long-range facilities planning.
I'll just talk. We're looking at presentation to the board again the May 9th or the COW. Preferably the COW, because no action has to be taken. There's about 7 or 8 members of the group that want to be there and also help in that presentation and answer questions.
One of the other things we talked about, I don't think you were at the last meeting. We were remote, so I didn't know if you were in the room or not. Okay. One of the things we talked about too, we're going to have the community listening sessions. Those will all be live streamed. And then we will have a page on the district website solely dedicated to the long range facilities plan, so that it's the one-stop shop for people to go for the minutes from when they've had the meetings, the videos of the live streamed community listening sessions, and then I think Bruce reported on this already before with the survey going out to every household, not just people with kids, but every household in the district. Did I hit on everything? What's that? Oh, yeah. And then also we'll work on doing a video kind of explaining the process and how it works with Matt from Bray and TJ to kind of let people know how the process is going to work and what all's been done and things like that. I believe they're narrowed down to 2 pathways now, too.
Is the May meeting the last meeting that you're going to have, so it's the last presentation for that meeting?
I think it's going to be the May 9th meeting, right? Because the committee of the whole is pretty booked up. Okay.
We tried the committee of whole.
Yeah.
And that next one was too late.
So May 9th at the regular meeting, there'll be a presentation on there. Anything else? Policy committee. All right, thank you. I think that's every committee, right? I believe so. Brenda's got it all nicely laid out for me. We'll move on to items requiring action. May I have a motion on subject 11.01 Math Online resources for grades 6 through 8?
Mr. President, I move
Director Hayes.
I move the board approve the 1-year contract extension with McGraw-Hill and Glencoe math courses 1, 2, and 3 in the amount of $62,010.12.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Potts. Is there any discussion? Director Poston.
I just want some clarification. So is this strictly for, will all this money go towards online curriculum?
So this is a resource that the teachers are currently using. So when you walk into a classroom and you see the smart board that's up there, they utilize those resources. And so a good chunk of those of the technology that you see here is to continue that. And then to extend any kind of online learning. Yes, it's not necessarily tied to Edgenuity. ILDs, do you have anything to add to that? Just speak. I'll leave the microphone on. It'll pick it up.
And not only is it not tied, not necessarily tied to Edgenuity, it really has nothing to do with online resources, meaning not the books, not the worksheets. Teachers can assign things in the class to, all right, I'm going to push this out in Google Classroom, and it comes directly from Blanco. So it's just the electronic version where we used to just have books.
Instead of buying workbooks, this is that version of that. Thank you for that clarification.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
Director Klein Jerome?
Yes.
Director Postian?
Yes.
Director Gordon?
Yes.
Director Beck?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion on subject 11.02, non-bargaining and administrative salaries?
Mr. President.
You got it.
Second.
Seconded by Director Hayes. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Director Klein Jerome?
Yes.
Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Beck?
Yes.
Director Postian?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
Director Gordon? My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion on subject 11.03, policies for board approval?
Mr. President,
Director Beck?
I move the board approve policy 210.02 on our regular meetings and 402.12 release from contract as presented.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Director Beck?
Yes.
The board, we have partnered with YAP. We have with us Dave Williams and Mr. Cole from YAP. Very proud to announce that we have our person hired for our region, and Mr. Cole. And Dave, are you still with us online?
Yes, sir, I am.
Well, thank you so much for being patient. We are very thorough in our meetings. Now I'd like to turn it over to you. The board has heard about this. We discussed this. So basically, let's give us an update to where we are at this point. And Mr. Cole, if at any time you'd like to step up here and talk in the microphone is right there. Join us, please do. We would love to hear from you. So, Mr. Williams, please take the presentation this time, and thank you so much for joining us live from Chicago.
No, thank you for inviting us. We really appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to the board and introduce you to Mr. Well, many of you know Mr. Cole or know Mr. Cole from the community. His great works in the community, worked in law enforcement there, and also worked for the Davenport School District as well. So, but just to kind of, and I did this presentation previously about the Choose to Change program. Do you think we just need to go through the presentation again, or just kind of talk about where we are programmatically on the ground?
We're more of where we are with an update in terms of the program and the progress that we've made so far.
Yes, sir. To date, we rigorously partnered with Lincoln Resource Center and the district, as well as myself and a few other of our team members to do a rigorous interview process. I believe Mr. Woods from the district was on our panel conducting the interviews from the district. We had two members of the Lincoln Resource Center participate, and we had 2 or 3 members of my team across the West region participate in the interview process. We were able, Mr. Woods identified Mr. Cole as an appropriate candidate for the position. We interviewed him, and he successfully accepted the position, I think 2 weeks, well, maybe 3 weeks ago now. He's been to Harrisburg for new director training. We've opened the office. We're waiting on additional equipment to arrive, but we've ordered the equipment. He has his office space, and he's currently interviewing. Mr. Cole will update you on his progress in terms of his interviews. We project startup of the program by mid-May, the second week of May, and he's the program has had a historical success in terms of being able to ramp up. So we're right on target. Mr. Cole, did you have anything to add to that in terms of where we are in terms of progress, in terms of startup?
Well, I just want to reiterate that, yes, the second week of May, we should be up to full capacity. We're housed out of the Lincoln Center, so we're right in the midst of the community. My partner at the Lincoln Center, Tracy Singleton, she was here, but she had to leave. We are intensely interviewing people, and we hope to have some people on board here within the next week or so. Rest assured, though, that those people will have to be trained prior to actually being engaged in the work that we have before us. I can tell you myself that since I've been on board, I've been intensely training to Harrisburg and as Dave said, to Peoria and Springfield. So for those that on the board that don't know me, I've been a fabric in the school system for over 4 decades. As Dave mentioned, I was with the schools. I was your district liaison at one point in time. Recently at Central, I worked at Keystone. So I'm fully aware of the district and working with families and kids. I think her name was Courtney. She actually gave my spiel about being in the midst of the school system and wanting to give back and looking for the challenges that are before us. So I invite you all to come over to the Lincoln Center. I'm putting the office together as we speak. It's a work in progress. I'm really excited about the work because I've been doing this type of work all of my adult life, working with kids and families, and I'm looking for the opportunity. This organization that I've become a part of is so intensely with teamwork and families and strength-based, getting our families, meeting them where they are, and moving them to different levels. We're just passengers in a car that they're driving to get them where they need to be, and we're just heightening those strengths to make them better people, better citizens, to be productive and move on with their lives, whatever those avenues or pathways might be. So that's me in a nutshell. I'm really excited, as I said, and I'm really to get things going, and I just really welcome the opportunity to continue giving back to the district. I thought maybe when I left, I wouldn't be working with the school system, but guess what? I'm still in the mix of things and still a part of that process. Any questions of me?
I'm Allison Beck, and first of all, thank you for taking on this position. Just a couple quick questions. So I know I asked this in the past, sort of right when we were introduced to this program. There was another program with the same acronym popping up that the city was running. And so I had asked about, using a name that wasn't YAP because there's some billboards around the city, you've probably seen them, that's not the same program, but to avoid confusion. They changed their name? Oh, well then we don't have to worry about it.
Clips you want to add to that?
Yeah, partly for that reason, to differentiate that program that you're referring to as being the name only changed to the coordinated assessment program.
Oh,
They
okay.
will be rebranding those signs and different things. All the program is exactly the same except that, partly to make sure that people differentiate.
Okay, good. Well, that solves one problem.
I think it's CAP now?
Coordinated assessment
CAP?
Okay.
CAP?
I got it. I'll remember that now. Okay. And then my other question was sort of just to give me an idea of, and anybody who's listening, of what you guys are looking to do. Do you have sort of a target number of students you want to get into the Choose to Change pathway, or number of families that you want to interact with in the first, say, 6 months or year of the program? Is that part of what you guys set down as your goals when I don't know what you set down in your leadership training, what you've learned, but do we sort of have a baseline of here's what we're going to try and do the first year, and if we can do this, then we can keep on rolling?
Well, I'm 3 weeks, as Dave mentioned, into the program, so there's a lot of literature that I'm still reading and digesting. But what I can tell you is that my understanding is that the referrals will come from the district. We're looking at starting with a small cadre of kids, maybe 15, maybe a little less, with a maximum number by the end of the year, maybe doubling whatever we start with. So it's going to be pretty intense. Once my advocates get out out in the field, we're still looking at an administrative manager that hopefully will come on board, as I said, within the next week or so. But I think that we're hoping, anywhere from 15 to 30, maybe more than that by the end of the year. I know school is coming close to a close, but we want those referrals to start coming, by the middle of May, and we will hopefully be at full capacity with staff.
And the other thing that Mike didn't talk about was we want your most famous students. So the students that the principals, the people are very familiar with that need our support. So we want to work with your most famous students.
I just want to add to that. I'm kind of learning the lingo of YAP. And that we don't look at them as clients, we look at them as program partners, the kids and families that we work with. So that's kind of the lingo that I'm learning to share with people. So any other questions?
Director Poston?
The concern that I always have, and what the district has too, is attendance in class, and so that affects our early literacy scores. With this program, is it possible that there's going to be some pathway as far as reaching out to parents to get make a greater effort to get these kids in the classroom? Because we can spend all the money we want on early literacy programs, but if they're not in the classroom, it's going to be hard to improve those scores, and it's going to be hard for those children to learn.
Well, the process and the engagement with the program partners that come on board is pretty intense and pretty involved. Again, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it and learning the process, but everything from an intake, it's all of the people in that family circle sitting together at a table talking about their strengths and what we can do to move them to whatever the next level might be. Parents are very integral in that, and extended family is very integral in that process. The plan, if you look similar to an IEP, we call it ISP, but if you've ever been involved in that process, it's that type of process of dealing with the whole issues of that person. It could be truancy, it could be, street violence issues, whatever those things may be, our advocates are 24/7. We don't just do a 9 to 5. If that kid has an issue, he needs to get to school, we're calling him up, we're going to get him, we're taking him to school. A lot of releases need to be made to take place, but we're actually out there hands-on 24/7 dealing with families and kids. So those truancy issues, hopefully by the end of the year or within the next year, we hope that we can reduce some of that because of the intensity that we have in working with these families and kids. We're taking them places, we're going there, if it's getting a job, whatever it is, we're a part of that fabric of helping them get to that point. So I hope that answers your question, because we're 24/7 with the services that we deliver, and bar none.
And just to piggyback on what Mike talks about, like many of the districts that we work with, and when we'll be partnering in Davenport, we have an analogy. We call it BAG, behavior, attendance, grades, and that's part of our work. So we want to ensure we are improving behavior in school. We want to ensure that we're improving attendance, and then we also want to support instruction in terms of engagement with young people that cause some challenges to other students' academic performance as well. So we want to have some spillover, not only serve the students that we're working with, but have some spillover to other students by impacting positively young people that could be causing the disruptions to the educational process.
I think this question will be for Big Dave. How many people did you have apply for the job? Was there a lot of interest?
Yeah, we had probably 10 or 15 applications, and we interviewed 5 for the director position.
Okay, thank you.
5 or 6 for the director position, and Michael just blew us away. I think we had a interview committee. We all took a vote. And Mike just did an outstanding job. And his reputation in the community, we did, comprehensive background check, state, federal, of course. And then, we also did background checks in terms of his personal and professional references, and all that stuff came back stellar. And he just, he shined through. And then going through, we sent him to new director training in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And he got rave reviews for some of his, involvement, his insight, and in terms of the work and the level of commitment he's already demonstrated throughout his career.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Mr. Cole, thank you for being a part of this program. You've done a lot for the district through the years, even when I went to school. So greatly appreciate your advocacy for the kids and the district. So I think you'll be a huge asset for the YAP program. And again, thanks for continuing your service even after retirement. So we appreciate that. Any other questions? Awesome. Thank you very much for the update.
Alrighty. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thanks for hanging out with us through all the technical difficulties.
No worries.
All right, next discussion item. Subject 12.02, junior high course adjustments.
Well, this is, thank you. This is off of a board request to kind of talk about the changes that we are making in our junior high course request. So I'm going to ask Mr. Driscoll and Mr. Klipsch to come up and speak. They've prepared a presentation to kind of share the work that's been conducted over the last several months as we prepare. One of the things that I'm incredibly proud of systemically that we're changing is the way that we do staffing. You'll hear it's about student need. It's about student enrollment in the process that Jamie and Kevin have helped lead right alongside with our cabinet, with our other cabinet members. I'm very proud of that. So here's a response to one of our board requests, and I think it's very timely. So I'll hand this microphone over there so you don't have to hold that, Ben, if you like.
Testing. No, it's not. It's not working. We spoke to. Hello. All right.
All right. Thank you for allowing us this opportunity. It's probably been a long meeting for you guys already, so just thank you for that. Brenda, if you want to go ahead and scroll down, please. So we have 3 outcomes and literally a slide or 2 on each. And so any questions that you might have, feel free to jot them down, and Dr. Klipsch, myself, and anybody else can chime in. So we want to recognize what our current reality is, like right now as we sit here. We want to talk about why we took a look at the junior high scheduling options, and then the third outcome is we want to share our process of how we arrived at where we are today, and then we'll actually share the guidelines with you as well. So thank you. We are going to continue to include these. These are our IASB questions that you guys have done so well at. And Brenda, if you want to continue on, please advance the slide. It's all right. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Klipsch, and he's going to talk about a little bit about like where we are right now, our intended outcome number 1, which is examining the current reality related to junior high schedules.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So at all 5 of our junior high schools, this is the consistency now that 100% of the courses that we offer at our junior high schools meet that Iowa code in Chapter 12. All 5 of our junior high schools offer those band, orchestra, and choir. They have a standalone MTSS period. And again, when we're talking about that MTSS block, that MTSS period, that's the intervention period, or that where we provide interventions to students who need that extra support, or acceleration and enrichment to students who have mastered those basic standards but need something more to push them to that next level. So when you hear about MTSS period, it's that set aside block. We also offer Spanish 1 to 8th grade students for high school credit, as well as pre-algebra and algebra. Next slide, please. And this is where we really have found that we needed to take some action here. That we have, when we look at the elective course offerings at our 5 junior high schools, you can see that depending upon where you live in our district, you have the opportunities and access to different courses. And as we work to create a better system within our district to ensure that all students, no matter what zip code you live in, have access to the same opportunities and courses, this is where we said we needed to look at things a little differently. And we started here as that examination to jump into that, so that whatever school you go to, you should have some of those same opportunities. So we're not going to read through all those, but this is the currently, depending upon the building that you go to, the different course offerings that are available to you. And so I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Driscoll to kind of talk about these next few outcomes and to finish up.
Thank you. If you want to advance there, please, Brenda. So we set out with the 2 bullets up top, with that as our expressed goal, is just this idea of equitable. Whether you live in East Davenport, North Davenport, right in the middle of Davenport, West Side, out in Walcott, Bluegrass, or Buffalo, that you'd have the same opportunities. It doesn't matter what your zip code is or where you live. If you're a junior high student in Davenport, you'd have access. The second one is to create a structure that is able to support a healthy, multi-tiered system of support. So we said that clearly, and we'll go through the procedure in just a minute. What I wanted to include there, or point out to you, is as the conversations were evolving and as we were working through this process, some of these bottom 4 bullets just kind of emerged. They came to the surface, and we recognized, yeah, that is something that we are able to accomplish here. So yes, you could make a point that it fits within the 2 bullets, but I wanted to make sure that we called out that those pieces, those 4 pieces, were very important in our conversations. You expand. So the last one is, so how did we get here? How did we go from what Dr. Klipsch showed us at the beginning, where we have some inequities and some inconsistencies, to recognizing the why, and then to bring it here too. So now how are we going to do this? So if you'll please advance for us, Brenda. So the first thing, as Superintendent Schneckloth said, we began with our staffing, and we were talking about how do we staff our buildings appropriately, how do we staff and while being financially sustainable, to identify vertical articulation. And what that's getting into is we were all out at John Deere, and we heard about all these pathways, and we were so excited. And we were down at the Bet North Waterfront Convention. We were hearing about CTE and whatnot, and we thought, how do we systematically start putting that in our junior highs as well? So that's what we mean by vertical articulation. And then, of course, inequities, we've talked about staffing inefficiencies, where we have people kind of teaching one-offs throughout, and that's a very difficult thing to staff when we don't say, no, at our junior highs, we all offer X, Y, and Z. Staffing becomes much more efficient. Then, of course, financial sustainability. So that was the kind of the catalyst for this. From there, then the Learning and Results team, under the direction of Dr. Stevenson and then Bonnie Acey and her group, they started putting together some recommendations and some different ideas that we then took to the principals. And they were allowed to provide feedback, pushback, anything that they want. Yeah, buts, did you consider, did you think about? From there, a small work team comprised of a principal, somebody from Learning Results, and a couple directors started working on kind of taking that feedback and putting something together. And then we brought it back and said, well, what do you think now? And it became too many conversations and trying to come back. So instead, we all went into a room. All of our junior high principals, we brought in critical friends, and we started with those two intended purposes, and we just kept working to come up with revised guidelines. And that work session over multiple sessions came back with the finalized guidelines that then cascaded back up to cabinet and HR and finance and accounting to make sure that this is a sustainable model. And then that's when we built our staffing from that and pushed it back out. So the result of all that is a Cliff Notes version, but the result is what you see here. So in our junior highs, we will have an advisory time. I don't want to call it a block because you'll see towards the right, advisory will be 20 minutes long. And then all of our traditional periods will each be 44 minutes. And their intervention block, or that MTSS period, as Dr. Clips referenced it, it will be 30. So this becomes consistency throughout. The other thing that's really important is you'll notice it says exploratory, exploratory, exploratory down towards the bottom. So what that means is in 7th grade, and you see that bulleted list, the bolded top items, you have to take anything that's bolded. We have to per chapter 12. So what this means is those exploratories means 3 of my classes, I have 4 quarters. So I have quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4. People that build schedule will call that an exploratory wheel. And I have 3 wheels. So that means I have a total of 12 credits. 1st quarter, 2nd quarter, 3rd quarter, and 4th quarter. So I have 4 terms, 4 terms, and 4 terms. Now, if I'm a student that says, I want to take band that is actually a year-long course. So those 12 terms, I've used 4 of them with band, which means I have 8 left, of course. So then I would look up there and say, okay, those bolded ones, I have to take 2 terms of PE per the state guidance. I have to take a term of art. I can choose between computer apps or gateway to technology, and the buildings can help me make that choice. So then I had already taken 4 for band. I have 8 left, and there's 2 terms plus a few more. Now notice in music, if I took band, then that takes care of that. So then what will happen is the counselors and the administration and whatnot, they will build the student schedule from there, and these will be the options. That way it's not like, well, what do I get to take? Well, at our school, you take this. If you transfer over to that other school, you might have a different opportunity. Everybody's going to have the same opportunities to build those 3 exploratory wheels. Please.
and Mr. Driscoll might be getting to this, but what you see with some of those additional course offerings, which we're pretty excited about, is as we continue. You mentioned the CTE, the apprenticeships signing day just last week. As we try to better enhance and align our curriculum to support students kind of going into those pathways and figuring out those bigger goals, we have now aligned these junior high courses that allow all students to have more of an exposure to those types of things, so that when they get into high school, they have taken something like Design Your Life, which is about those CTE pathways and which ones they might want to take, and some of these other pieces, health services goes into the health services CTE pathway. We've tried to kind of put that into this so that students don't start as a freshman and then be exposed to some of these for the first time. They will have piqued their interest and planted those seeds, so that when they get into that next that high school track, they are able to recognize that I already know I want to go into nursing because I took that health services class and I was really interested in that.
Thanks. I wasn't going to say that. I'm glad you did. Yeah, thanks. All right. If you'll advance for us, please. So I showed you this at the beginning, and this is what we recognized when we started digging in. The exciting thing, and go ahead and please advance, Ms. T, this is where we landed. So can you go back previous? We're going to do that again so notice the inequities, notice the list, that the length of it. And now if you'll go back again, please, this is now what every student at every school in Davenport will be offered. Now, I'll be honest, if you go back to the others, you could find a couple and you say, wait a minute, Smart was offering this. It's not there anymore. I would reference back to our good friend Gary Sinclair that said we can do anything. We just can't do everything. So to offer everything under the sun is not efficient staffing, financially, and whatnot. Brenda, if you'll advance, I'm going to bring us back to our learning targets at the beginning and then open it up for any questions or reflections.
Any questions, Director Beck?
3 questions. The first one is, I understand everybody should have the same opportunities, right? But in terms of this junior high has, I don't know, I'll just make it up, 100 students. That one has 300 students. Is it really reasonable to offer the exact same huge breadth of classes to a school with 100 students versus 300 students? How does that factor into this scenario?
So all the staffing of all of this has been, for lack of a better word, prorated. In other words, it's built upon the student and the schedule. So no matter what, I have the same amount of minutes in my day as a student as at any other school, regardless how many are here. So what we did is we created basically a staffing ratio where it's like we can offer these classes in each building based on your enrollment. So there is not a situation, there's not a case that we're sending somebody there for more than they need, or we've given them, for lack of a better, more staffing just in the name of equity. It is still within our staffing allocations.
So are you not offering every of these classes every term, or how does that work then?
So that also will depend on your counselor, your administration, and how they schedule it. You won't necessarily have to, because it will be built by course request. In other words, let's say in this kind of hypothetical situation of 100 students, let's say only 24 of them requested Design Your Life. Well, then we'll only offer it second term, because and then we'll get all 24 scheduled into that. We don't need to offer it 4 times and have 6 kids each term. That's not efficient. So no, it will not be.
And that's the point I was going to make too, is that these are student course requests, student need-based decisions, and we're trying to do that more at our both junior high and our high school level. We're moving into a model of like, here are the courses offered or available, and having students get to choose what that is that they're interested in, and then we try to build schedules, which makes it a little bit more complex for us sometimes, but based on the student need, rather than here's what we have, and well, they might be interested in that. Well, sorry, we're going to squeeze you into this other course, and so that's where we'll be able to identify what those requests are and then make decision based on that.
Okay, so my second question then, did the schools not have the same amount of contact hours per period? Like, was that not the same between all the buildings before?
It was.
Oh, it was. Okay. And then finally, since I have a student in the CAA at Sudlow, he has to do early bird PE and health or something like that this semester. I mean, are we still going to be able to offer things like CAA? That's a lot of exploratory that's not part of.
Yes, so all those courses that we listed up there are do not include the CAA specifically. That's correct, right?
Okay.
And we did have in this current year, we had 3 of our CAA teachers that we were not able to create a full-time position at Sudlow, and so they were supporting elementary schools. So we pulled those positions back to full-time at Sudlow in order to allow for as much flexibility as possible, so that who my daughter is also going to be in CA next year will have the opportunity to take all those same things. Now it will take a little bit of scheduling flexibility and trying to work through that. But yeah, that would be on top of the same course offerings.
Okay. So where necessary, and whether it might not be at Sudlow, it might be somewhere else, will there be early bird offerings if that's the only way to fit in certain types of things that a good chunk of, I mean, I know you wouldn't do it if there's 5 kids, but you know, if a whole bunch of students are in a similar track or something like that, and that is, I mean, would that be offered where needed?
What I would say is, we in no place are we saying, and we're not offering any early birds.
Okay.
So I would say that if we get in a situation like that, the building administrator would talk to their ILD and would talk to the learning results and say, hey, how are we going to pull this one off? But at no point has anyone said, and no more.
Okay. Okay. Good to know. Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Director Potts had some. I know Director Gordon. And then I know we had student board members. So I did see all of your hands. I just wanted to acknowledge it.
Is this going to look like a shared staffing / shared room space between buildings? I mean, you wouldn't share rooms between buildings, but staff, you know? So will there be situations where like an early childhood teacher travels between the junior highs and then like say health and Spanish and graphic arts have to share a classroom based on enrollment? Like how does that look? Because I'm having trouble picturing it as a space issue, especially.
I don't know. I'm going to speak a little bit to some of it, but if there's any staffing that you want to answer in terms of traveling, I don't want to misspeak. So that's why I'm turning my head. I would say that there is always the potential for shared staffing, just in general, with the number of FTEs that any building is allocated. And then when you start talking about, like you said, the size of the building. And if you had 100 students in a building, even an ELA teacher wouldn't have a full-time position there. Again, that's an extreme example, but to illustrate your point. In terms of, well, that list just got really long. It's going to go back to a really nice question Director Beck asked, is like, so are we going to offer every one of these classes every term? How could we ever pull that off? And that's where you're going to avoid that. A class like ELA or math, yes. There's going to be multiple teachers teaching that multiple quarters. But when you start getting into these electives, I don't anticipate that that's necessarily going to be a concern where that's going to be offered all the time. Now it could, and then we'd have to get creative. So I can't, that's why I'll say I don't anticipate that.
Director Potts.
I think we agree that the student populations in every building is different from building to building, and that the needs of those students are different from building to building. And so when I start hearing the equity, what I hear is lowest common denominator. And what I see here is lowest common denominator. I ask, what was the rationale for 7th graders no longer being allowed to take Spanish 1? What was the rationale for that?
Are you
I'm asking, yeah, it's a question.
So what was the rationale was just the number of courses and the staffing. I would say it was a conversation that came out of that.
Why aren't we allowing the Sudlow kids to take French anymore? Because everybody else can't take French?
That's part of it.
I think that's the primary rationale. If everybody can't, then nobody can. I don't agree with that. You know, will the kids in the CAA be able to be in band and orchestra?
Yes. If they're in the CAA, yes. So that would be one of those that we have to kind of work out that schedule. But students that are in the CAA should still be able to participate in band and orchestra.
Are there any changes to TAG?
No.
Talented and Gifted program in the in the middle schools?
Not through this scheduling.
Is there going to be any change in the TAG program in the middle schools?
If there are changes, it has nothing to do with our scheduling guidelines. They would still have more. They would have opportunities within.
I understand that. I just want to. Are we aware that there are going to be alterations in the services given to the intermediate students through the TAG program?
I think that's a different question. We can have TAG give an update on that, but it does not, like any kind of TAG services is not like, okay, now we can't. Oh, hi, Jamie.
Go ahead.
Sure. So one thing that I am aware of as far as TAG goes is, and Kevin can speak to this as well, is that they had some carryover dollars that were funding some staff, and there is a retirement in the TAG group that will not be replaced because the funding is no longer going to be there. So I'm assuming that maybe that is going to alter potentially some of the offerings because we're not going to be as staffed as we used to be because there's not that TAG funding.
AVID program?
We are not moving forward with the AVID program.
Now, we just had a presentation in November of the AVID program, and it's my understanding the decision was made in December to axe it. Is that correct?
The AVID program was part of the reductions the previous year. And so the presentation was about AVID, but the decision had already been made as a part of a reduction that we weren't moving forward with that contract. We were fulfilling that.
Well, I don't believe that the board was aware that the presentation we were getting on AVID was for a program that was dead.
My understanding of that presentation was that it was a board request to learn more about AVID, about what that was. I could be wrong on that.
Yeah. I guess I just when you decide that everything's got to be the same, you fail to provide for kids. You fail to sustain or take care of the needs of kids. There are kids that need to be taking different things in intermediate school than the intermediate school down the road. We don't do this with the high schools by a long shot. Right? We differentiate. That's what we're supposed to be doing, differentiating and taking care of the needs of our learners. Build a schedule, build your courses based on student course requests. We always did it that way. This is not doing it that way. You can put a wheel in here and take care of this stuff, but you're taking things away from junior high school kids. The opportunities for foreign language, the AVID program, and we're just, if everybody can't, nobody can. And you go down that road, and pretty soon nobody really, all we have is average. We have lowest common denominator. And we're not providing for those kids who can and will and need to be challenged and accelerated. But we provide tons of resources for kids who can't learn, won't learn, or have a hard time learning. We can't afford Spanish for the 7th graders, but we can run a whole high school for at-risk kids, and we can add a 9th grade to it. We can't afford to have AP be 3 terms. It's got to be 2. But we can have all sorts of math interventionists and reading interventionists and intervention in curriculum and family support liaisons and credit recovery programs and all that, which I'm fine with it. But we as a school district are in competition for people to move into this district, send their kids to our schools. And maybe I'm naive, or maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see them going to line up to come to our schools because we have great remedial reading programs. We have great family intervention programs. I see them coming here because their kids can have academic opportunities they can't get other places. And that I don't see being reinforced, encouraged, or planned for in what we've got here. And I just can't, I can't support that. I can't support it. I just can't. It's the wrong stuff in the wrong direction. It's not where we need to be going as a school district. I got plenty more, but I have a feeling I'm howling into the wind.
So, first of all, when I first heard about this, I know that as a senior at West, just for an example, I did not know that we had an interior design class. Yeah, that's just one single class, but we don't know all of these options are available. And the reason I didn't go to North is because I didn't want to do those classes. I was at the time more interested in the medical field. So it's just baffling to me that we're gonna do one thing for elementary, one thing for middle, and then one thing for high school. At high school, there's not welding at every single school. There's not the dual enrollment program at West. There's not a trillion different things at all the other schools. Like, don't we have open enrollment for everything? So why can't people just choose where they want to go? Or I don't know, not necessarily that, but it's just hard for me because there could be 5 kids who want to take that 3D art class at Smart, but there's 20 of them at Sudlow. Well, guess which one's going to run? The Sudlow one, because there's not enough kids. So either way, the kids are going to lose out. And if we're going to have all these different classes at every different school, the kids need to know they're offered, because a senior at West, I didn't know half of these classes existed, and that's a huge problem because I could have done so much more. Avid, as far as that, on my campus portal, you can see I have a little Avid flag if you ever want to look me up, and I'm just going to say that's a great program, and I don't know why that was budgeted out or whatever, but it does seem kind of pointless to me that we saw the presentation for it and it's not a thing anymore. And I know that's been a big key component at success, specifically at Central, and that Avid continued at Central because that's something that differentiates Central from West and North. So that's just confusing. And then the whole MTSS thing, I know that's a big talk for high school too, if we're like keeping that middle school, whatever, but that's between MTSS and advisory, that's 50 minutes every single school day. That to me is a waste of time, because let's be realistic. So it takes 5 to 10 minutes to get kids seated, especially when there's behavioral issues, in a single classroom. Like if you ask any teacher, how much do they get done in MTSS or advisory? It's pretty low, because that's 50 minutes of a day that you could be giving back to the 44 minutes and all the other periods. Yeah, we need those advisory times for testing or ISASPs or whatever else big community things we need, but that's 50 minutes every single day where teachers are writing referrals, securities are chasing kids around the classroom because they don't want to go. Like, I see that on a daily basis at West, and I don't even have a 5th block or an MTSS. And I literally see security. That's, if we're going to complain about having so many referrals or having so many disciplinary issues, then, and if you look at the times these happen, does it happen during MTSS, and does that happen during advisory? I mean, from what I can see, yeah. So if we're wanting to improve our statistics, it just doesn't make very much sense to me that we're spending 50 minutes a day chasing kids around a hall, because that's what actually happens in a school building every day. Did the teachers have input in all these different classes?
So what I would say is we worked through the principals and we would say, all right, let's meet next week. And so, no, we didn't have teachers on our committee. And it would just be assumed that the principals were speaking for the teachers.
So one of my concerns with that is because, as you guys know, I'm a part of the criminology class that the first time it ran this year. And my teacher knew not even like 10 weeks before it started. So there's no curriculum for these new classes. I know it's been 4 years since I was in middle school, but we did not have a Design Your Life class. We didn't have blank, blank, and blank. Is there curriculum for this so the teachers aren't scrambling and quitting their jobs because they're given a class that they don't have anything for?
Yes.
There is? Okay. Yeah, that's all I have. Just, yeah.
All right. And then my questions echo hers. But the lifetime fitness class, right? With the PE, first of all, what's the difference? And then if there isn't much of a difference, why could a student not sub in a lifetime fitness class into a PE so that they can use that same time and be able to take any of these other classes? Because with as many as are being offered, that seems like a little bit of a oversight. If there's opportunities to sub in, but it's not within the actual time frame to be able to use those.
I'm a little confused with your question. I'm sorry.
Okay, you're good. So the lifetime fitness and PE, is there any way that a student could sub that lifetime fitness for PE? Yeah.
I don't believe they are, because physical education has certain standards and requirements that they have to meet. Lifetime fitness does not meet them all. So the PE needs to be the PE, and I could be wrong about this, but I don't believe I am. And the lifetime fitness is not required. So it would just be that person that really wants more of that.
Okay.
So that would be an elective.
And then, again, I think that taking some of these classes away from kids it's horrible. Some of the best times in my middle school were taking some of these like extra foreign language classes. I felt that they really prepared me better for high school times, and because like a Spanish 2 class as an 8th grader, getting to be able to get that higher learning at that time of my life, it helped me progress more in not only my Spanish life, but within like, it gave me a boost once I got to high school. And so being able to have that opportunity and take that, was so helpful to me. And I know that I'm not alone in that. And so being able to take some of these classes that are being taken away from kids, it's really going to hurt the kids. I know that I'm leaving, and so it's not really going to affect me, but I have siblings that are in the middle schools, and they're going into the middle schools, and they're going to be at a detriment to what I was and what some of my other older siblings were at. And so I am not a fan. But thank you.
Okay, so I was just looking back at the classes, and I'm in AP Spanish, so obviously I enjoy Spanish, and it's great, but the reason why we're not continuing French anymore is because not enough kids want to do it, so that just sucks. But there are kids that if it was implemented earlier, I'm sure they would. And my mom went to like Des Moines Valley High School, and they had like French, Japanese, blah 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 blah, and that was like offered just like an exploratory like language class, and you could just see what's out there. Like, we need more of that. And then honestly, I think that the slide with, and I do not mean this in an offensive way, that the slide with everything being equal is just like a facade, because no matter what, there's a reason why they're not already at every school. Like, there's a reason why there's not a demand for it, so that's why it's not already there. So we're saying that we're going to offer all these. Well, wouldn't they already be offered if the kids wanted them?
So that's where it started in the beginning, that we said we're scheduling students and building that off schedules. Where in the past, the building site had individual control over whatever classes they wanted to offer. And so the opportunity to create equities across the district was just that. So there are things that we as a group of people have been working on over the last couple of months. This is what was landed on.
I would speak to one thing, and I want to validate and just absolutely and say every person is entitled to how they feel about this. The one thing objectively that I would push back on is saying that this is lowering the common denominator, because in every building there are more offerings. Now, it might not be the thing that people are looking for, so we can say, because French is one that's not going to be there, we're not offering French. The kids are at a loss, but oh, by the way, we're offering 3 things they didn't get offered before. So then it becomes people deciding what they are prioritizing. And so to certain people, it's French. And to other people, it might be graphic art or Design Your Life or Spanish 1. And so I want to also go back to when we were establishing the why, we said, these are our 2 things. We got to make sure every kid has an opportunity for everything. And we got to make sure we can support a multi-tiered system of support. And from there, we had all these, including French, including the other things, all on the board, and all of our building principals were there, and this is what came out of it. So I want to make sure that that's stated.
Well, I was just going to say, when it was brought up about Avid, I was the one that made the board request for the presentation on Avid. But what disappoints me is I had no idea at that time that it was out the door already. And I'm not sure if anybody on the board knew that or not. Again, I somewhat understand it because it's very expensive to run. Just like the Career Arts Academy is very expensive to run. But I mean, I agree to Director Potts. You know, what do we have here that's drawing students to our district? Okay, it's Career Arts Academy, it's programs like Avid. So we've got to come in. Again, I sit on the finance committee, and you also have to look at, okay, you know, where's the money going to come from to support those programs? But again, we've heard it time and time again. You know, we have programs that other districts do not offer, and that is a draw. There's no question that the Career Arts Academy draws a lot of students to Sudlow and Central. And just like the Avid program draws students too. But again, finances have to come in play too. But I don't know with this setup whether we have that, whether we will have that draw after a while.
And partly you were turned that way. Did I understand no teachers were involved in doing this? This was a principal central office, and I really have a problem with that. I've taught junior high, I've taught elementary, I've taught high school. The teachers should have been involved. To leave them out of that, it was a big mistake. Taking away some of the foreign language opportunities. Again, I took Spanish, 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. Got to high school, took German. That was a big deal. The student board members are saying that's a big deal, and we're leaving that piece out of it. I would like to see at least a language arts class that is for tag kids only. Not mixed, not a mixed class. so that they can be pushed, accelerated. Otherwise, tag just becomes kind of a side thing, or we'll pull them out, or there's got to be something in the junior high for these accelerated kids. And if you've got them in a class with everybody else, they aren't getting that. And maybe it's also a tag math class or whatever it is we focus in on tag. Push it into a classroom. I know that, that's not the way we look at things. It should be a mixed group, but we're not doing any service for these top kids. And we don't do it very well in elementary, or we used to not. I don't know. Maybe it changed. But in the elementary, it was, in some buildings, it was, we'll read a book and answer questions. Seriously? I can do that in my language arts class, my reading class. That's not accelerating kids. That's not pushing them. So if you can't do it separately, at least get a class where they can get that push they need.
I was just going to add that. Is like honors math still a thing?
So that actually kind of played right into what I was going to say. I am not comfortable with the idea of assuming that the principals talked to the teachers, because we have heard from a number of people that the same thing happened with the AP number of terms. Well, I wasn't consulted. And so some principals are great at reaching out to their teachers on these things, and some that's not necessarily their strength. And so I don't think we can do this. I'm not comfortable supporting this knowing that there were no teachers involved in the decision making. I'm not saying every teacher has to be consulted, but to me, this is such a thing. This is such a big thing. And I know principals, that's the liaison, right? And so this is a big change, and I really don't know if I'm not comfortable with that. The idea of the exploratory wheel and having this space to explore, I think that's fantastic. But as I'm thinking about this and hearing everybody, I do wonder, because we know that the kids whose families can afford to send them anywhere, they're going to pick the schools that are special. And if we don't have that special, then they're just going to move. The kids, I agree, we need to be able to offer a big smorgasbord to all of our kids, because some of the issues are kids at this school don't have the same opportunities to explore as kids at that school. That's totally appropriate, and I love the idea of expanding these opportunities based on what students are interested in. Give them this sheet, but include French. If people say they want to take French, why don't we figure that one out too? I mean, I know we have to make tough decisions, but if we're doing this based on student demand, shouldn't we offer them lots of things and then say, well, what would you take if you could choose to take any of these foreign languages? Would you pick? And if nobody signs up for French, fine, that's the answer. But I think the idea of because foreign languages are one of those things, they're not teaching them in colleges anymore, and at least not in community college now, because there's been a decline of foreign language at a higher level. And so it's now to the high school and junior high where students are going to learn any foreign language. And I think that's a real shame, because speaking just English, I feel like I'm at a disadvantage a lot of times. It's just there's a cultural awareness that comes from speaking another language. I took Latin, and that helped some things, but it doesn't help me get along in the world, right? Well, it helps me understand English better. But so I guess my concern is that A, teachers were not part of this, but B, we do need to make sure that we are paying attention to those kids. And I hear from parents about this too. We should expand the opportunities for the kids who don't have those opportunities. But the kids who are accelerated, who need that special, we need to provide that for those families. And so I don't know what the best answer is, but that's something I think we need to consider.
student? No? Okay. Director Hayes.
When you first started the presentation, it kind of bordered on the equity. The more I listened to it, the equity versus equality. With this method, it almost seems like we're breeding mediocre students. There's nothing for the high performers too much, and I agree with what's being said. With the opportunity to go wherever you want to go, students may leave. And we're not wanting that. If we could add something, some type of flavor to it where they could select something that they're forced to excel at, that would be it. Because, I have a daughter like that. She's had many complaints about not being able to do this, that, and the other. Her son is in 9th grade, and she's already questioning the higher version of math in high school. And he's just started high school or 9th grade in the fall. So, and this boy has had a portfolio going since 6th grade. So I'm sure there may be other parents in the district that feel the same way, that we need to offer something at a younger age because times are changing daily. And if we're not able to keep up, we're simply mediocre. And, that won't get you into a Harvard. We need to give something to challenge these young kids.
Going off what Ms. Hayes said, as I said like multiple times, I'm in AP Spanish, and my senior year of high school is the first time I've been challenged. Like, I have not struggled more in my education in like my whole time until my second block AP Spanish class. Like, that is not the point in my senior year where I should be struggling. Like, I should have had to do that in middle school. Like, this is the only time it's been pushed, and it's a foreign language, so that's slightly concerning because that's challenging for everyone. So I just wish that we had more rigorous things, and I know we have so many people who are struggling and all of that, but it's hard because I'm going to a college next year, and I'm going to be dealing with kids who have been able to be pushed, and they know however many languages, and they're in whatever calculus classes, and they're doing all these things, and I'm gonna feel that I'm gonna look stupid because that, like, I have not been pushed, and that's the only class that's ever happened, and I just don't think that's okay. I think that everybody struggles in different things, and everybody has challenges in different things, but challenges are a part of life. And if something's too challenging to like the point where you can't stand it anymore, then you need to figure that out. But like, everyone needs to be pushed and not be handed to them, or just make it easier. I'm not saying that everything's like that. It's just that we really need to make math classes more difficult, or like if the whole class is getting straight A's on everything, okay, what can we do to enrich that? Even if it's a booster class, okay, if they're all doing great, then what can we do to improve their education?
For years in our district, we've been site-based managed, and that's the reason why you see the different pathways that have developed. The shift of going towards this model allows 7th graders to explore. The credit-bearing courses are still there in 8th grade. I believe they still get to take an exploratory Spanish. So they're able to take an exploratory language to determine what pathway they choose to take, and the credit-bearing Spanish is in 8th grade. Is that accurate?
Correct.
So the leaders in this district, while having to make tough decisions, locked themselves in a room and decided that this is the best pathway. And our leaders do communicate with teachers. Now, we can always improve on how we cascade that, definitely. And we're getting better at that every day. This is an example of how we can continue to improve that. And we're going to. We're very committed to that. I've heard the feedback that our board would like to give moving forward. How do we how do we set ourselves apart? How do we make ourselves different? How do we make ourselves great while being equitable? And that's a heavy challenge to us. And I do want to remind our board that we can do anything we want. We can't do everything we want. So if we add French and Spanish back in, something's getting cut. And we will do that. We will take the charge of the community leaders, and we will do that. I have to reflect on the feedback that we're being given right now as we are, I believe staffing has been completed utilizing this process. And so I think we need to take this feedback. I think we need to digest it and be able to move forward. And I've heard several points of feedback. And I will tell you, the last how many years we've been doing schedule, and we make a change, we don't invite teachers to come into that. So we should, and we will. And at what level? And how do we cascade? We have a cascade inside this district. And the cascading of this is from the schedulers inside of our building, which are our building leaders. And I trust them. And yeah, they had some knockdown dragouts in that room. They did. And they came to consensus and they moved forward. And so I've heard that feedback and loud and clear. And I believe that we could move forward from that. I don't know where we sit with our staffing to make changes now. And I would also consider the hard work that's been put into this to move forward. And I believe that our young students at 7th grade are still learning what it is that they could be passionate about. So that the notion of having the ability to explore, we've had great lengths at conversation about what's been taken off, what's been put in. And I appreciate the passion around this because we want the same thing. We want to be excellent. We want to be something that's better than anyone else. And so we'll take that feedback and we'll see what adjustments can be made. So I know that this has been a spirited conversation, and I don't want anybody to think that we aren't listening. We'll take that feedback and we'll continue to move forward. One thing that we will do is we will cascade things. We will calibrate. We will collaborate with one another. And I'm proud of that work that happened, because when Mr. Driscoll and Jake talked about the process, it was a very collaborative, and we realized how we need to communicate. And we eventually, just like Ben said, locked everybody in a room. And what is it? And so when I look at that, when I look at the apprenticeship signings that we have, imagine those career explorations where John Deere's coming in and talking to those classes and doing those things. That's very beneficial. And so I hear the challenge from our school district, from our school board members. So thank you.
Thank you for the presentation.
It's the right side, yes.
All right, next discussion item, subject 12.03 Davenport Learning Center roof repair project. Just stay up front because we'll handle the other one too while you're right there. I do want to point out, normally we'll do the public hearings, and then we'll take action on it, but we haven't had a chance to discuss it. When we did the last discussion, it was on the architecture firms. So this is actually on the project. We wanted to stick with the...
This is for the north, or which one's first? Davenport Learning Center. So this is for the drawings, the plans, the specifications around the roof replacement project at the Davenport Learning Center. Just wondering if there's any questions about that. Just start off, I can give you a little feedback. The roof repair project cost up front look like they're covered by PEPL, and then our insurance company will reimburse us back. The deductible is $100,000, so each of these projects will have to pay that deductible, but the rest of it will be paid by the insurance. Plan is to get it done this summer, late fall.
I just want to make sure I know what building this is. Is this, like, where is this located? Off of Kimberly?
Off Kimberly by the KFC behind there, kind of
Is
near
there-
the DMV.
Yeah. Is there anything like going on in there? Like it's the learning center. Like what is it?
Currently, there is a maintenance shop in there for for our maintenance trucks. There is our bakery is also inside that building, and there's also stepping stones in there, and a large amount of stuff stored in there.
Great discussion, Josh. Knocked it out.
Thank you.
All right, we will move on to subject 12.04, the North High Gym roof replacement or repair project.
This is the same thing. There was damage from a storm back in December. Just looking to replace the roof. The drawings and specifications are complete for that roof. Any questions around those? Go ahead.
Director Beck.
Is it a second $100,000 deductible?
Yes.
Each building is its own, right?
Yep. It is the same storm.
Yeah, let's see if we can save that.
I'll take the $100,000 wherever we can. I agree.
So all that wind, but only the gym needs replacing, not all of the roof there?
Yes, and they walked. Joe Regan and the insurance agent walked virtually every roof in the district after the second one came up to check them.
It has to like meet certain criteria, have like dents in it from hail and different things like that for an insurance company to.
In this situation,
cover
the
it.
wind caught it and like ripped it off the roof. Nope. Good.
The only question I have, and I asked about this before, so the plans and specification actually, this is the type of material you will use to make sure that they put the right stuff on for the longest range. I think some stuff has 7-year warranty and some has like 25-year warranty.
Correct. We take the longer warranty and a thicker mill material than what we used to do.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Next subject is 12.05, Policy 100, Educational Philosophies. Or Philosophy. Director Gordon. Okay. Sure.
I have strong feelings about it, and I want to be able to verbalize them with clarity, and I'm very tired.
Okay. The motion's been made, or actually, I don't know if I need a motion on this discussion item, do I? So we can just roll it on. Is everyone good with that?
As long as we can still stick to a timeline.
Why are we postponing it? It should have been studied. If it's on the agenda, you should have it studied. You should prepare and discuss it at this meeting. Define that.
Okay.
I believe the intent tonight is for an update from our policy committee chair, more than a roundtable discussion by the board. That's why there's nothing attached here. I would come to you for attachments, and if we're ready for a big
This is really more of a, here's the plan that the policy committee came up with. So,
On how to move forward with it and then
Yeah.
get the board's feel on that.
yeah.
Are you?
It's not the actual educational
Okay.
philosophy. Oh, no.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
would've
no,
given
no,
me
no,
that.
no,
No,
yeah.
no, you would've given
Yeah,
me
no.
that. Yeah.
All right. All right, I will turn it over to Director Beck for the discussion as she's chair of policy.
Oh, yeah, I probably need that. So basically, the policy committee met to discuss how to best go about what needs to happen, right, with this philosophy. And the policy committee came up with the idea that we would use a model for the educational philosophy that's similar to the layout of the Des Moines district. And theirs is very basic. It's like, it's bullet points of things that students will be able to do if they're graduates of our district, right? Students will be able to communicate, I don't just make something up, be global citizens, that type of thing. And that the board would create the mission statement, but the community would create or give input on the vision utilizing the LCAC committee. So basically the mission statement is like what your goal is, but the vision statement involves like how you get there. And so this would be based on the feedback we got from you guys, the board would come up with, the basic mission statement, and then we could get input from the outside for the vision statement part of it. The idea was maybe to utilize a workshop model to finalize the product, the actual mission statement. And so we would want to, the reason I wanted to make sure I brought this up tonight was we would do it during June or July, like a workshop style session like we've done with some of our other meetings on an evening where we hash things out. And the policy committee can come with basic ideas. We can decide that later, or we can go from scratch. But that's kind of what the policy committee came up with, a suggestion for how we approach this policy.
It's a nice template to look at. I mean,
So I guess if anybody's adamantly opposed to that plan, I would like to hear it. But if not, I'll just assume we're going to kind of move forward this way. And I'll let Dan take charge of all the scheduling stuff. Director Posturing.
I'm not necessarily opposed to it, but again, this school board we're elected officials, and I think we should be, putting this together. As far as the importance to me, it's not that important. It might make people feel all warm and fuzzy inside, but bottom line is actions speak louder than words. And is this going to do anything for student achievement? I don't know. But I think our focus, again, needs to be on student achievement. And any kind of words you put down on a piece of paper is not necessarily going to do anything for student achievement.
To answer your question, those bullet points they will pertain to student achievement.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to say. I look at this as sort of like, we read the mission and vision statement at the beginning of every meeting, and I don't like to feel like I'm just saying words for the sake of saying words. I think it should be meaningful. It's kind of like, to me, that should be the compass for the district, and that should be the first thing that people see. This is what we do, right? But that's one of the things the policy committee brought up, is that the philosophy itself is student-based. This is what students can do when they come to our schools. So. All right, cool. That's it. Oh, I got policies again.
I'm just gonna go around the horn real quick. Is everyone okay with the policy committee putting something together on that format and then working off of that? I'll start with you, Director Gordon.
Personally, I still think that LCAC should have a hand in it because of the way that they are. Their purpose is to advise the board, and they've done some good work with this already. And community input from the stakeholders is important to me. And I understand that, yes, it's policy, and the policy committee needs to have input as well, but I also need to
Okay. Director Potts? Director Hayes?
I'm okay with what she said. With our new growing excellent, I think it's timely, and I'm good with what you bring forward.
Director Klein-Jerome? Director Poston?
I won't post it, but again, still think time to split.
Director Beck?
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good with it. I just
You better
talked
agree with
about
what
it.
she said.
All right.
I said it, but I wasn't moving.
Bipolar policy person.
All right, thank you all. Next subject is 12.06, policies for board second discussion. Before I turn this over, are there any questions on them?
That's what I was going to ask. Anybody got questions? And nothing has changed.
Correct. Okay. All right, seeing none, those will be on the agenda for at the next regular meeting to take action on. Administrative reports.
None at this time.
Board request. I have 2 board requests so far. All right. First request by Director Hayes, date of request April 25th, 2022. Item requested, agenda item. I would like to begin the book study from the books that were purchased at the ISB convention. Why are you making this request? I would like to get back into the rotation of personnel development. It's been a long night. When would you like this? June 27th board meeting as a presentation. Is there a second?
Second.
Second request by Director Beck, date of request 4/25/2022. Item requested, agenda item. Description of request. I would like to see if we can explore an ASWAS Inc. partnership with our CTE programs. Why are you making this request? We are often talking about how to leverage creative thinking and community partnerships, and this is potentially a great partnership, bringing students to explore jobs who otherwise might not be able to be exposed to them. When would you like this? As soon as feasible. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Hayes.
And actually, I will put it as a agenda item or information item. I don't necessarily need to have a super long discussion about it. I just think it's important.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other board requests? Director Potts' favorite part, board reflections. We'll start with Director Klein-Jerome.
I like that they in the right ASMA program speaking to the community. We saw any and community involvement, stepping up to options. And to say to them, what we need this, I think that's great. When they see and they step in, that's great. I appreciated Margaret updating us on a lot of things. Board members are showing you the effort when you report from your schools and the other schools. I really appreciate that. And one last thing I'd like to say, sorry to see you go today, but we graduate to see you on your next year. And that's it.
Thank you. Director Poston.
Presentation that Dr. Clinch and Mr. Driscoll made. As far, I know that took a lot of time and effort, and I know the board had a lot of questions. But I think hopefully something can be worked out, and just appreciate the time and effort that was put into it. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Beck.
It's like Kent was reading my notes to myself. My note was to thank you guys for the work that went into that presentation and the scheduling. That's a lot of effort. And I apologize personally if I sound angry about anything, because I wasn't. I was just asking questions. But so.
Thank you, Director Beck. Director Gordon?
Groups in our community that are doing awesome things, and we need to do a better job of showcasing them within our district.
I want to caution you. Board reflections are only about things that were on the agenda, not open. I know we've done that a few times, and that's Thank you, Director Potts.
Particularly, I've seen programs, intervention.
Thank you, Director Potts. Director Hayes.
I enjoyed Margaret's explanation of what was going on, the funding and retention being a priority in both the House and the Senate. And I always like reading her emails also to kind of keep you updated. So it was kind of good to see her and hear her discussion. I also enjoyed the student input because they gave a lot of real life information that as adults sometimes you can see things and we make decisions for children on what we feel is best for them, but it's kind of nice to hear their how they feel about things as well. I also like the explanation that Margaret gave about the transparency bill as well as the parents' right, and just kind of differentiate the variations from different people.
Thank you, Director Hayes. Student board members.
Alrighty, so I really liked the As Was and Yap presentations earlier. I thought that all of the things that they were talking about were very exciting, and I think they just both sound like great organizations to be working with. As always, I love hearing from the other student board members. I um, don't really get to hear about a lot of the things that they're doing at the other schools, and so it's just exciting to be able to hear more about that. I particularly liked hearing about Jackson's literacy night. I just think that that's amazing that they're trying to get the parents involved in that, and I thought that was really exciting to hear. I also wanted to echo some of the board members and just thank you guys for your presentation. I know it sounded a little heated on this end, but I just thank you for taking some input. I know those things can be hard, so just thank you.
Earlier, I really enjoyed Mr. Robinson and his team, and I look forward to getting in contact with him to implement his program at West because I think what he's doing is gonna make a lot of change in a positive way. I appreciate everyone's discussion over the junior high things, because everything is important, and listening to everybody's opinions, whether I have thought about it previously or not, opens my brain, and it always leads me in new ways, and I appreciate it. And thank you for spending all the time you spent on that. I know that takes a long time because nobody likes slideshows, but making them at least. And I appreciate everything you do, and I did not mean to sound rude or anything like that. And yeah, thank you for everyone for everything you do.
Thank you, student board members. Superintendent Schneckloff.
Sherwin Robinson was the highlight for me, and he is just a man of action, and I like being around people that like to do. And as you can see by my hair, getting a haircut changes the way a young man feels, and he knows the importance of that. And and he has been doing this silently for a long time, and I'm so glad to see him move forward. He didn't talk about who was on his board, and they're the movers and shakers in the Quad Cities, and so I'm very proud of the work that he's doing, and I hope it catches fire.
How come you turn the mic off on me? What's up with that? I think it was a great meeting all in all. A lot of great discussion and great presentations. Student board members, I love your guys' reports. I really like when you get your feeder schools involved. So hopefully the other ILDs pay attention to that and they have you follow that, because I think that's awesome when you get to talk about what your feeder schools are doing too, because then they're getting represented as well. And then plus you get to kind of see that stuff and everything like that. So I like that, and I appreciate that so much, because it's nice for, I know I see his emails. I wish the other ones would model that, but hopefully they're watching. But yeah, no, the ASWA, that was awesome. I'm glad that someone took the bull by the horns with that and ran with that, and all the other presentations. With that, Director Potts, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Seconded by Director Hayes. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? You guys sit down, Rick. Meeting adjourned. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll go into the next one.